All right, we are live. Facebook, YouTube, interwebs, plus members, the general tennis universe. Roger Federer, I assume he's watching.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing? Happy Tuesday.
Before the big match. What's happening, everyone?
As you guys are all streaming in here and we have the chance to talk to you, do us a favor, comment down below, because I'm feeling heavy right now. Comment down below what your favorite food item is you had over the 4th of July holiday weekend.
I got all the blood. We ordered Thai last night.
I had
gosh.
You know the guy who won the hot dog eating contest?
Yeah.
I feel like I probably ate more hot dogs. It just took more hours. Yeah. It was a lot of food. A lot of food. There we go. Is it Louis or Luis?
Oh.
I want to make sure I pronounce this right in my plus group.
How did I miss out on ribs?
Ribs. Yeah, what the heck? That's a good point.
We all give ourselves like that weekend, right? It's always a holiday weekend where it's like, you know what, I'm going to give myself a day. And I always regret whatever choice I made. Not because of the gluttony. I realized there was something I wanted more. And I didn't actively partake in it.
Yeah, it's like I've gained all this weight. I didn't even get to eat the cookie cake that I had dreamed of.
You know what I always miss out on? Cereal.
Cereal? That's your 4th of July craving is cereal?
I haven't had cereal in like 15 years, and every now and then I just crave it. And
see, this Mark eating grilled salmon is clearly making better life choices than we are. Mark, I'm proud of you. That's a very healthy July 4th decision.
He got on the scale this morning and was not upset.
There we go. Brandon says we made Korean barbecue. I love it.
Yes.
All right, we'll give it another minute or two for everybody to kind of trickle in here and get situated after the long holiday weekend. I don't know what type of attendance we're going to get. We've got some plus members here, which I always appreciate. Looks like we've got a couple dozen people streaming in here on various platforms.
Yeah.
So we will get this party started here tonight. No specific agenda, just a straight up Q&A. So you guys are going to have the chance to ask any questions. A lot of our plus members have submitted questions ahead of time that we will be answering. But I'm expecting a lighter attendance tonight than a lot of our specific content sessions. So,
which may be good because we'll get more questions. We'll be able to engage a little bit more.
If you're on Facebook and YouTube watching this, not a plus member, this may be your lucky day because you'll have a much better chance tonight to interact for sure. All right.
Our token.
Wimbledon gentlemen's quarterfinal predictions.
Ooh.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I got to go in order, JRR. I see you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get this party started. So if this is somehow your first Plus Live training, we put these things on specifically for our Plus members. They're over here on a monitor. If you see us looking down a lot, we've got a lot of computers here. Our Plus members are on a private Zoom call. We can mute and unmute them. We can see them on video, so they'll be able to ask questions that way. If you're not a Plus member, you're interacting with us on one of our social channels, which is great. We'll try and keep up. It is a lighter attendance tonight as we expected, so we should be able to give you guys a little more love than normal. But you can type in the chat, and we'll just kind of go in order. Obviously, our plus members are going to take priority, but when their questions run dry, we will absolutely field some from Facebook and YouTube as well. So without further ado, let's just dive into some of these plus questions that have been submitted ahead of time. All right, so the first one is from Jonathan in Boston. And Jonathan, I don't see you in the Plus Live room right now, but you do have the ability to watch this later. So when Nate's done choking on his water,
did you poison my water?
We will address your question here. So Jonathan is a 3-0.
Sorry.
You good?
Yeah.
Jonathan, that's the problem with live. If Nate chokes, you can't say cut and start over again.
No, we're here.
All right. I also, I suppose, need to make our faces live here for the recording. There we are. And let Amy in from Plus. All right. So Jonathan from Boston, 3-0 level player, on Thursday, June 10th, submitted this thing real early. Said, I do well rallying, but for whatever reason, playing in games stresses me out. Me too. Is there anything I can do to feel less apprehensive during a match? I think part of it is because I feel inconsistent with my shots. I have like a very standard response to this question that I'll give, and then if you want to add to it, certainly jump in. Anytime somebody asks me, like, how do I be less nervous on the tennis court? My answer is you can't. Nervousness is an emotion. So while you can't be less nervous anymore, then you can be less sad or be less upset. you can understand what nervousness is going to do to your game and think about things that you can do to relieve the negative impact of nervousness. So when you're out there and you're tight, I don't want you to think for a second that when Roger Federer or Rafa walks out there in front of thousands of people, they're nervous just like you are. The difference is they understand really, really well what those nerves are going to do to their body, what negative impacts are going to have on their strokes, and they know exactly what to think about in terms of muscle memory or in terms of like rituals to go through to calm the things that are wrong. So like for me personally, I know when I get tight, my feet stop moving and I start to squeeze really tight. And this is pretty common. This, Jonathan, this may be something that happens to you as well. But I think what I would really advise is think about what happens to you when you're nervous and the bad things that are happening in your game. And then start in practice to think about what rituals you could run yourself through, what pointers you could think about to undo the negative impacts of nervousness. So for me, when I'm nervous, particularly on my second serve, I'm gripping the racket too tight. I'm not moving my feet. So when I feel tight, I'm not saying to myself, don't be nervous. I'm saying to myself, relax your hands, move your feet. Relax your hands, move your feet. So those are the two things that help a ton for me. Do you have anything you want to add to that? I mean, my big shtick here is nervousness isn't an emotion. You can't just get rid of it. You just need to be able to cope with it.
I think the elephant in the room is you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And the only way you're going to do that is by playing more matches.
That's right.
And I'm pretty passionate about this. I didn't always have it figured out when I first got into coaching. I kind of prescribed to what a lot of coaches do in the US. And that's, let's hit 100 forehands cross court, 100 backhands cross court. Let's do some uptown, downtown, some tug of war. Let's do some ground stroke games. And then at the end, you get into serving or whatever else. But about a decade ago, just realizing that kids and adults, we don't all know how to perform. The game is sitting and receiving. It's strategy, right? It's about what are you doing off your returns? What are you doing off the serve? So the points are ending in 4 points or less on an average. We shouldn't be working through long rallies. It's not the correct way of training. So it's more about your match play and supplement. You should be playing a whole lot more match play. And I know it's like, but I want to get this rhythm right. I want to be working on this and that.
We practice our techniques so much. You don't practice competing enough in most cases, right?
We posted a really good article today, and it was a lot of it was from Oshak, from
nice.
Craig O'Shaughnessy, a friend of ours that had the pleasure. Brain Games, right? Brain Games.
Yeah, Brain Game Tennis. He was Novak Djokovic's strategy coach there for a minute.
That's right.
During several Grand Slam victories. Definitely a very smart tactician.
The article was cool because it was talking about what happened in American tennis, and basically, and you'll see the post. It's a picture of Sebastian Korda, and kind of asking like, can he be the next big thing? He's 50 in the world. He's 21 years old. It looks like it. But so what O'Shaughnessy was talking about, he was like, the biggest thing that's held back American tennis is we just don't, for a long time, we haven't practiced correctly between the footwork and then just the match play.
He talks a ton about like serve +1 and how the average point on the Pro Tour
and just getting out there and
balls, 2-3 balls.
Even Federer. I mean, Federer's interesting, right? When they ask him, I mean, we can't all be Federer, but like Federer doesn't like to practice. You would never catch him trying to hit 100 balls cross court, right? Like he goes out and he plays matches, and it seems to be working pretty well.
Especially now.
Right. I'm not saying you've got to practice, but if you're uncomfortable, if you're nervous playing, play more matches.
I like it. All right, we'll move on to our next question here. And guys, in the plus group, the way this is going to work, I'm answering questions from, ironically, you, plus members that have submitted these ahead of the call. Then I will come to you guys on the live call. Then you guys on Facebook and YouTube. I promise we'll get to you guys as well.
I love this from Chris. The more times you've been to the dance, the less nervous you are.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's only one thing that can happen when you talk to girls. You can either get better at talking to girls or you can have success talking to the girl, right?
Yeah,
like that was good advice for me as a 135-pound skinny dude with a bowl cut and buck teeth and acne in ninth grade. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so Randall Yim from Alexandria in Virginia, 4.0 level player. Let's see here. Attended our serve challenge, and he said, you guys are tall, so unfair on serves. But what is the most important keys for a short guy / older guy to focus upon. You or me?
I would just, I mean, I'll be short with it. Just focus on hitting
Is that a
up.
pun?
No, accidentally. I would just focus on hitting up. We always have this misconception that even at, you know, I'm 6'2", I don't hit down on the ball unless you're 6'6" and above. You're not. It's just not, it's not the physics on it. Focus on hitting up. You can be short and still hit a big ball, but focus on your contact point and just really getting that extension.
We get that question a lot too. Like, there's not a huge technique shift just because you're short, right? Like, yeah, does it help to be 6'11"? Sure, but like, there are plenty of guys 5'6". I mean, you can absolutely hit 120-mile-per-hour serve at 5'6" if your mechanics are good.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it wouldn't be easier. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of short guys blasting their serve. So, Randall, don't use that as a crutch. You absolutely, if you get your serve mechanics right, can blast with the tall guys. All right, running through these pre-submitted questions here. All right, this is an interesting question. So they're asking, can you tell us? Yeah. So can you tell us more about your rating system? And this is from Joe McCarran in Bloomington, Illinois. For example, how many rating points higher should someone be if your rating system predicts they should win about 75% of the games? Does the rating have an artificial cap like UTRs? Do you plan on refining it as you go? Just a bit more info. So this is a question for those of you in the community, which I would assume is almost all of you watching this. We're getting questions about how our rating system works. So our rating system is a proprietary algorithm. We didn't just take, UTR. We didn't just take NTRP. Our goal when we built this thing, obviously, was to make it as easy as possible for you to connect with evenly matched players in your area. So the way this works is you will take a self-assessment quiz. And look, we know just as well as anybody else does, sometimes people are going to sandbag on a self-assessment quiz. Sometimes people are going to inflate, right? So there's no perfect solution to that problem. But I think what our community does that helps quickly is your rating adjusts in real time once you submit your scores, right? So when you play that first match, you may play against somebody that's played 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 matches in the community. And we know, let's say they're a benchmark PlayYourCourt 50. So we're going to use that benchmark rating when we have somebody with a preliminary rating like that come in and play to really figure out where they are. We do, and we just made this change. We're starting to take more weight, or starting to put more weight on the scores in which matches are played. We're doing this for two reasons. One, because you're not going to beat somebody 0-0 or 1-1 that you're really close with in skill level. That happens very, very rarely. So we're doing a lot of things to improve this algorithm to make sure that the second you walk in the door, if you accurately take your self-assessment quiz, you should be paired with somebody that's very close in skill level to you. If not, you should very quickly play a match against somebody with a PlayYourCourt benchmark rating and adjust instantly to where you should be. So I know a lot of players, and we're studying this. Like, I'm not a data guy, but we certainly have some on our team. I'm not a data guy, but like a big, big part of the rating system is taking a look and making sure that the large volume of matches played and scores reported are even, and constantly adjusting our algorithm. I don't know if you guys know this. The founders of UTR are actually from Virginia Beach, Virginia. The guy who built the algorithm, Nate's coach growing up, is actually the founder of UTR, ironically. And he's Dave Howell. Yeah, absolute genius. No longer with UTR. He's given us a little bit of insight. Obviously he can't come in and build it for us, but he's given us a lot of insight and really helped us build. We're biased, obviously, but what we hope will end up being the best rating system around. So we will end up launching a variety of leagues, flex league type things, some Davis Cup style formats. You're going to see all of that. We're going to beta test some of this stuff in the fall. For those of you who are watching and didn't know this, we are technically launching our app tomorrow. Since you guys are here on the live stream, I'm going to cut you in on a little secret. It's actually already in the App Store for both iPhone and Android. So
exciting stuff.
Go in there, search PlayYourCourt Tennis. You're going to see it pop up. The app's there. Give it a go. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. I know a lot of you have been waiting a really long time for that. So some big algorithm updates and an app launch sort of all within a 3-week span. So get in there and play with all that stuff. That was a long-winded answer to a question about a rating system. So I'll get back to the instruction here. All right, here we go. This is from, oh, nice, Chris. This is pre-submitted from Chris, who is here live. Chris, I'm going to unmute you so we can talk about this a little bit, my dude. We pin you here. And I have asked you to unmute. How we doing, man? Happy Tuesday. How was your 4th of July?
Great, it's fantastic.
Very cool, very cool. Well, so the question you submitted here was talking about serving and volleying in doubles. Server gets first volley at the service line around chest height. Is the best shot at the net person or back to the service returner at the baseline and continue to close? So I'll read that again just so we can process.
Yeah.
We're playing doubles. The server is serving and volleying, and he gets his first volley at the service line around chest height. So, you know, not an obvious put away, but chest area. Is the best shot at the net person or back to the service returner at the baseline and continue to close? I'll go quickly and then you can add in. My automatic response is you shouldn't really be hitting at the net person unless you feel like you could. I'm not saying you should, unless you feel like you could hit the net person, right? So depending on where that ball is, if it's sort of floating in at chest level and you feel like you could drive that at their feet and really take advantage, that's definitely a fantastic option. If you don't feel like that, if you feel like you're more reflexing at your chest, playing back to the baseline player, keeping them on the baseline, putting them on the pressure, putting all the pressure on them and forcing them to pass or lob is always going to be a great decision. So I know that it feels like a cop out, Chris, but the real answer is it's situational, but it's never wrong to go back to the baseline player. And if you've got a ball at chest height that you feel really confident you can attack, then going at that net player would become an option at that point. You going to add anything?
I'll just say, Chris, I think it's largely level dependent, right?
That's a really good point.
I wouldn't teach a 3-0-3-5 probably to go at the net person. Just lack of velocity on the ball, the instinct to close the net. But I'm not saying that. I don't want to make a generalization and say that's everybody. But you are going to see higher level players, certainly the pros, if they get a chest high ball at the service line, they're going to drill. They're going to work on hips and they're going to work on feet. And then from there, they're going to follow the ABCs, always be closing, right? They're going to follow that ball in. The reason I was saying, the thing is when you're working with, if it's lower level, and I'm not, by no means am I saying that derogatory, that's the facts. If it's, we'll just say recreation. If it's more recreational, then what we want to remember is the person that is at the opposing service line, they're the most scared. So they're also the most ready, right? So they're ready for that ball to come in. And so if you don't find their hips or you don't find their feet, they're just reflexing back to you really, really fast. They're not going to have the ability, necessarily 3-5 to place it, but then they're putting the ball back on you really, really fast. And that can get difficult. The reason I really like, and for myself included, I'll put myself in a number of categories for experience or ability, but a lot of times I will play back to the person farthest away from me purely out of, I feel like I can get a better ball.
Yeah.
Right. So like if I go back to that person to baseline, every time we hit to that person to baseline and put them into rest, we take away more time. It's like hitting on the wall.
It's a patience thing. I feel like too many players get up to the net and they're like, I've got the kill ball, let's do this. And it's like, be patient. I mean, I call it isolation tennis. My favorite thing in doubles to do is get to the net and pin that player on the baseline and just make them come up with the winning shot. I mean, I think at most skill levels that is going to be a foolproof plan. A lot can go wrong, like Nate said. When you take that ball at that net player, you got to really be doing some damage to make sure, that's the right decision. Does that help?
Yeah, yes. I usually end up going back to the baseline player because it just seems natural coming in.
For sure.
Yeah.
I like the, let me see if I can switch back to our tennis court here.
Chris, where do you play when you're going back to the person on the baseline? Like, are you playing middle? Or are you playing wide? You pulling them in a little bit? Like, what's your go-to volley on that transition?
Well, it depends on whether I'm serving deuce or add. I'm left-handed.
Chris, can you see my X's okay on this TV? Let me make them a different color.
Yeah, I can see it.
You can see them okay? The green X's, you can see those?
Yeah, they're not the greatest, but I see it.
Yeah, let me
They're
make
not
it
very
better.
good. You can say it, Chris.
That's not nice.
Not the greatest, actually.
Keep talking to Chris while I erase my unintelligent colored X's here.
You mean the green on green? I'm a huge fan, Chris, of playing everything through the middle. Like if I get that volley, playing back through the middle of the court, and really trying to keep it low. Because I know I'm getting a ball back at middle. If they go back trying to go across me, then I have them dead to rights. There's a million different ways to win the point. But that ball through the middle, it's like 9 out of 10 times you're either getting a put away volley or an overhead. So I feel like that's always a good decision. Like if I can serve, I can take that first volley up the gut. And it puts the person on the service line in a predicament, because like you're playing in between the space. And if they step over to try to help with middle, then the court behind them is wide open. If they let it go, especially on the deuce court, now their partner has a backhand that they almost always lob. And it's like, I'll take an overhead from anywhere in a service box over any other shot on any given day.
Chris, let me explain my artwork back here a little bit to add on a little bit to what Nate's saying. So when I was talking about isolation tennis, my favorite thing to do, and you can do this from the baseline at a really high skill level, but what I like about this is even at like the 3.0, 3.5 level, this concept is very easy to execute. So I like to pin, like I said, this player, this X back here on the baseline, and then I like to just stay out of what I call the no-no zone. I didn't come up with something cooler than that, I'm sorry. But the no-no zone is this big circle with an X here. It's a no-no zone because they don't have to take very many steps, right? They can set their feet, they can step in, they can rip, they can hit successful passing shots. They're comfortable there. If you push them back or more towards the middle where they're either on the run to their backhand side as a right-handed player, or even on the run to their forehand as a left-handed player, where they're on the move or they're being pushed back, or if you're dropping it short and out wide, and this really should be a lot more aggressive here. It's really more in here. You've got what I call isolation tennis. So my goal is to continue to push them back and more towards the middle of the court with every volley that I get until I close the net a little bit more and feel comfortable with this short angle more into this little triangle out wide. All right, and it looks intimidating on this angle, but it doesn't have to be quite this good. If you can push them really far off the baseline, you can dump a ball, you know, pretty darn near the middle of the service box here and have created enough space to hit a winner. So I like, I mean, really almost every time for me, if I get that ball at my chest, I'm going to try and stick it back deep towards the middle. That net player is not going to be able to poach that because there's no time. So I can push them more towards the middle of the court and open up all this space out wide. And if I get a backhand volley in this position and that's not a comfortable shot to hit, I'll just go back deep again and again and again until I have the easy forehand volley that I want as a right-handed player to go into this box. So I love that ISO tennis strategy, particularly when you're serving and volleying. Just stay patient. The pressure is on them. If you just keep punching your volleys deep and pushing them more and more towards the middle, you're eventually going to open up some court space over here to do some damage. I love that strategy at all skill levels. And the doubles movement mastery workshop that we always hold down here, that's always like an aha moment for rec players where it's like, oh man, like I don't have to put the volley away. I can just stay deep until I get the easy volley and drop it short and cross court. Does that help?
Yeah, it's good.
Cool. All right, my man. We got a lot of other questions, so I'm gonna sprint through them, but I will tag you in here again
Chris.
later. Yeah, thanks for attending, man. Good hearing from you as always. Let me unpin. I'll mute you. Come on, Zoom. All right. We've got, let's see here. We've got 2 more questions that were pre-submitted that I want to get to. Aaron from California. Let me see if Aaron's in here. I don't see him, but again, we'll be able to see it later. This is my favorite type of question because it starts with, for Nate. For Nate, can you talk a little bit more about your decision to switch to a one-handed backhand? I've been experiencing a lot of soreness on my offhand with my two-handed backhand, and I'm not sure if it's just poor technique or if maybe I should switch as well. I can address this a little bit. Aaron,
he didn't say for Scott and Nate.
Aaron from California. It was
for Nate.
It was a very easy decision because Nate's two-hander was doo-doo. So he said I could stick with his doo-doo, or I could try and I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll erase and let you defend yourself.
In college, my two-hander was my jam, man. So for me, I'm sorry, who'd you say it was from?
Aaron in California, 3.5.
Okay. Hey, what's up, Aaron? So for me, I didn't have a choice. The TFCC, so let's lovely piece of cartilage that runs over here. It runs like a triangle, and it holds down that ulnar tendon. And so on my, I wrecked it on my right wrist, and then I did it on my left. And so during COVID,
this is the surgery the greatest tennis player of all time, Juan Martín del Potro, keeps having on his wrist.
He's had a couple. He's had some ECU stuff, some TFCC. But yeah, so I tore. It was super dumb during COVID. I was basically at home, sheltering in place, all that good stuff, and I was working in the yard, pulling up some edging, and it took absolutely nothing for it to happen. It popped. I knew it immediately. Searing pain, all that good stuff.
Workers' comp didn't cover that. He was in his yard,
no,
folks. You heard it here. You heard it here on the live stream.
But the impact on the two-hander and the wrist coming over, I just can't do it. And even to this day, it's been almost a year, and I still, even mini tennis, I cannot take impact to that ulnar side of the wrist. So I just had to kind of start messing with it. And the truth is, like, I've got a decent one-hander now, but I've always kind of had a one-hander because I've taught tennis for over 15 years, heck, almost 20. And any teaching pro, if they're hitting in their non-dominant hand, they're going to be holding tennis balls. Because the idea is, if I'm in live play, I don't want to have to go back and try to create the situation. If the student misses, I want to quickly feed a ball and be in the situation. So although not that good, I had a one-hander. Now, what I found is I've really enjoyed the switch. I'm able to hit the ball much harder. I'm able to hit it with a lot more spin. And for me, like, especially my two-hander used to be kind of my preferred shot, but over the last few years, as I've gotten more injured, the hips have gotten tighter, whatever it might be, my movement is more restricted. I feel like I can cover more court with the one-hander. I feel like I can hit better from out of position. The one place it's lacking, returns and doubles.
It's just reps.
Yeah. No
you just
problem
haven't had a lot of
no
and you got a good
singles.
shit. You can chip.
Yeah, no problem. But in doubles, yeah, it's like that other person in the net. Like, I've suddenly turned into a chipper. I'm like, yeah, I'll chip that one. I'll go ahead and lob that.
So what are your
right?
thoughts? So he's saying, I've been experiencing a lot of soreness on my offhand with my two-handed backhand.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's just poor technique or if maybe I should switch as well. I mean, we're not doctors here, and we haven't seen your strokes, obviously, but I wouldn't say abandon the two-hander for a little bit of pain quite yet.
It could be an ulnar tendonitis, and I'll show you guys one of the major culprits. So on the two-hander,
give me to zoom out.
If you're making, that might be good.
There you are.
When you're making contact, one thing you want to make sure is that you're not rolling over. You're not doing this. And this is where you're getting that ulnar tendonitis, and this is what a lot of people run into. But they hit their two-hander, and then their left hand is coming over, and it's actually doing this.
That hurts me to watch.
And they're finishing. But I mean, in my years of coaching, this is what I come across a lot, right? So idea is I want to work out to extension, and the racket is raising, and then it's coming over. But I'm not folding over. And what the culprit is there is an overactive left hand. We want to be hitting our two-handed backhands with their non-dominant hand, but we don't want them so active that they're hooding, that they're getting over top of the ball and then working over. We want to make sure that we're hitting up and out through extension. That's right. And then the left hand gets a little bit more of a break.
Cool. I love it.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, Aaron, hopefully that helps, man, and hopefully you can make it to our next live training. I don't see it in the plus room here, but maybe next time we'll get you live. All right, so this is fantastic news. Lewis, my man, and I see you on video. I'm going to ask you to unmute, pin you here to our video. What's going on, man?
What's happening?
How you doing?
So you're in Norfolk, dude. You're like 10 minutes down the road.
What's up, neighbor?
You should just come to the office and we can answer this question face to face, man. What's going on? So you're in Norfolk, huh?
Yeah, sure am.
That's awesome.
How long you lived in Norfolk?
About 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so for you guys that don't know, we're located in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Norfolk is 20, 30 minutes away, depending on what the traffic is doing. Some days an hour.
I play over at Ghent Square, if you know where that is.
Yeah, of course, man. Time in Ghent is time well spent. There's T-shirts. I'm just saying. All right. So Lewis, it is Lewis, right? Not Luis?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Awesome. So I got your question here. In your 5-day serve challenge, you said that the scratch your back guidance for the tennis serve is an old myth. Why? My serve seems to be much more powerful when I feel my racket against my back on the racket drop.
Mhm.
So since Lewis is from Norfolk and a hometown dude, I'm going to let you offend him instead of me.
So the question is, why is it a myth?
Yeah, why? What's wrong with scratch your back technique?
So what's happening is I think what you're finding is the added benefit of creating a racket drop, right? So I think and that's part of the reason it was taught for so long is it's a wonderful way to get the imagery. And this is certainly this is scratching your back, right? This is certainly way better than keeping your racket up here. But the reason we were saying it's a myth is that at some point, and especially for players that are looking to take their serve up considerably, right? Like maybe you're playing and you're hitting into the 80s and you're like, I just cannot, I want that 3 digits. That particular tip doesn't allow for the particular swing path that we're looking for. So if I'm here, what ends up happening is that I have to go into adduction, horizontal adduction, which means that I have to pull my arm around in order to get my arm to go up. And what I want to be doing is I want my arm from here to be going out in 2 extensions in order to get this internal shoulder adduction. And the only way that's going to happen is as I'm working through, pin out. Yeah, pin out a little bit. As I'm working through my serve, once I'm back here, I've got to have enough space that as the racket drops, my elbow comes around and then goes to here. And if the racket is laying on my back, it can't do that. I just don't have the joint position that'll enable it.
So Lewis, that was like one of the best technique experts in the country giving you advice. I'll give you the dumb version. You're also going to hitch if you hit yourself in the back. It's darn near impossible to not stop your stroke completely if you're touching your back with your racket. So you're losing a lot of momentum and you're going to lose that. If you watch the serve challenge, you heard us talk a lot about the back foot and how that activates that whip. There's a good chance you're never going to feel any of that. So while you may be getting like sort of a falsified racket drop, you may be missing out on all the momentum that right foot drives. You may have a hitch. So I mean, there's a lot of things as coaches that could go wrong for us as we're coaching students, you know, that leave that racket on their back and actually make contact with their back. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's good.
He's like, man, I live right down the street, and they just came at me aggressively and told me.
And feel free to follow up with any questions. I don't want you to think at all like it's. I'm not saying it's bad. Like it's just as far as a myth. It's maybe the correct language. It's a little bit of antiquated teaching. You know, when I was a kid, I was told like it's an extension of your ponytail and to brush your hair, and that's a little bit more realistic. It's just if I'm getting a mental cue for it to touch my back, I'm not truly in the correct joint position.
I don't think that's bad instruction. I just think it's a progression. It's not like the end game, right? So like if you were using that as like as a tool to understand the racket drop, that's awesome. I just as a coach would never leave you there as the complete product, I think.
That's right. Yeah, Keith, we had a guy, a really good 4.0 out of Ohio that came down and trained. And we went through a kick serve progression where we actually had him closer to here. And then we had him work a little bit more through here until he was here. So yeah, that's a really good point. It's a good progression, but it's
a great teaching aid. It's just not where we would have you land as your final technique.
Yeah.
Does that help, my man?
Yeah, it does.
Very, very cool.
He's like, I'm gonna show up to your courts and drop.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you just roll down to Virginia Beach and show us this new serve, man. We're always. It's funny because we have this global community. We're open in I think 27 countries now. And it's so rare that we, connect with somebody locally that's in the community. I know I was looking in there just yesterday. We have something like 115 people in the Hampton Roads community, and I don't know any of them. And it's very weird. It's like these people are probably playing on tennis courts right next to us, and we don't even know they're in the community. So it's always cool to see somebody local. So thanks for chiming in, man.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right. Let's see here. Remove pin. All right, so we are through our pre-submitted questions. I see a couple in our Plus Zoom chat here. Danielle, is it Danielle or Daniel? I need to see your face. Let's see. It looks like a Daniel. Daniel, I'm gonna pin you and unmute you here, buddy, if you're comfortable with that. It's like I don't have a choice, do I?
That is like
What's going on, man? How are you? That's definitely Daniel. You're not Danielle.
Sorry, Scott doesn't understand the spelling between Daniel and Danielle.
Hey, you know.
There's no accent marks, but it's not a problem.
So I got your question here. Curious about racket strings, 18 by 20 versus 16 by 19.
Yeah.
Do you suggest one or the other for a PYC 50-ish? So you're like around a 3.0 probably, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm told.
And why does it matter? Do you want to field this?
Yeah,
You're
I just had that
certainly the
conversation
technician.
with Mike today.
Nice.
Mike, we have an academy member. I don't know, I think he's like 4. He was number 1 in Florida. Really good player, but he is switching rackets. He is looking at the Wilson blade, and it comes in the 18 by 20 and the 16, the open string path. So here's kind of the way you want to think of it. So the dense string pattern, will you go back up just a minute? The 18 by 20, you're going to get a lot more control, right? Like and you can feel it. It's a lot more dense, but you're going to lose out on the access to the spin, and you're going to get a lot more pop on the 16 by 19. So I'm playing with the blade. I play with the 16 by 19, but I've dabbled with the 18 by 20. Once upon a time, I used to love the 18 by 20. But you're going to be able to feel like you're going to be able to swing out on the 18 by 20 a whole lot more because of the control. I just really struggled at finding kind of the depth, that heavy ball that I was looking for. So the 16 by 19 made more sense. Now at 3.0, I mean, Daniel, what would you say, what is your weapon? Is there a shot that you're just like, yeah, man, that's what I want to be hitting?
You know, I tend to run up to the net more than anything.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. Pete Sampras is my guy.
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
And I'm kind of a big guy. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall, but probably 200 pounds or so. So I can definitely hit hard, but I also can hit the fence very, very easily. So I've only been playing for a year and a half or so. The first racket I got was a gift. My wife had it in the garage. It was one of those Prince like 107s. So
yeah,
the first swing, and I like hit it into the next neighborhood. So I was like, all right, what do I get? I Googled a few things, and I bought Pure Storm Limited. So it's like an 18 by 20.
That's a heavy stick too, right? That's like 11 and a half ounces, right?
Yeah.
That is before. So before we
I played with that for a little while.
Yeah. So before we switched to Wilson, I've been sponsored by Wilson since I was like 10. So I've always liked Wilson, but then I went to University of Maryland and their team played with Babolat. So I was sort of forced into Babolat, and we played with, I think, that exact racket. And then we tried
red and white
switch. Yeah. I got it on eBay because I don't
it's a good stick.
$1 million trying to figure out. It's great. And it really chilled me out.
Yeah.
Like, just doing a bunch of research, I've read a lot of things that said at my level that racket wouldn't give me the spin that I should be trying to get.
It's definitely a player's stick. I mean, it's definitely.
Yeah, but I'm cool with it. I mean, like the smaller head, like learning contact. Here's the reason I asked why it matters. What your preference is. If you're like Nate, Scott, I just love ripping heavy topspin forehands. I'd be like, 16 by 19 might be what you're looking for, right? Because it kind of highlights that kind of shot, right? For me, I had a big heavy forehand. That's what I want to highlight. If volleys are your thing,
I'm the opposite. Big flat ball, 18 by 20 all day, right?
Yeah, you want it super controlled. And for volleys, you're going to want to knife it. You're going to want a little bit more control. So I don't see where 18 by 20 where you can go wrong. I tell you what I would do. I would go to Tennis Express, and I would demo both of whatever racket. I would try people are like, well, you have to say this. The Wilson blade, I think, is the best racket on the market.
We don't have to say it. Babolat reps. I don't care if you're like, we switched to Wilson because we think they're better products. Like we can play with whatever we want. Like we are passionate about the Wilson sticks. But
when you demo,
the blade is going to be, I think, the equivalent and feel a little bit more.
I think so.
A little bit better for you.
When you demo them, try to get the same string, because that's the one thing that people kind of get. It gets a little bit funky if you get demos with different strings. they're going to play very, very different, right? But typically they string them with a synthetic gut, but I would definitely demo them. I mean, I would lean towards the 18 by 20 by what you're telling me, but I think it's worth, if you're going to invest in a racket, definitely get some demos.
Yeah, and Daniel, I can't tell you live on the internet how big the discount is, but go to the deals and discounts section in your Play Your Court dashboard. There's a sizable discount on Wilson rackets in there. So give that a look before you buy anything.
It's like the size of Scott's head. It's
way bigger than that.
It's huge.
Oh, I hear you. I see you.
So check, yeah.
What do you mean when he sees your big head?
It's not nice, Nate. All right, my man, does that help? We'll move on to some other questions here. You got everything you need?
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, man, of course. Have a great rest of your night.
See you, buddy.
All right. All right. People watching on Facebook and YouTube, it's your lucky day. We are at the moment through our plus questions. 757 Tennis. I assume that's JR. What's going on, dude?
What up, JR?
Speaking of local dudes, one of our good buddies that we play with a couple times a week is in here showing us some love, which is cool. All right, I'm going to just move through this stuff quickly because there are a lot of you in here and there are a lot of questions. So we're going to go rapid fire here where you're only allowed to spend 35 to 45 seconds maximum answering a question.
It's impossible. I'm the most long-winded dude alive.
That's why I'm setting this parameter. Otherwise, we're going to be here till 6 in the morning. All right. So Robert Frazier says, I had a critical loss in doubles, and I'm wanting to know what y'all do to get past a big loss. Break rackets. Next question. Just kidding. Time heals all that woes you.
Whack, dude.
What's your advice? Like,
I mean, you're right.
It stings. It sucks. Like, you first admit that it sucks, and that's fine. Like, it's going to sting for that night. But I like your example. You do this mid-match. I like this analogy for all things in life. It's your 3 rooms. Tell them about your 3-room analysis, and then apply it in less than 35 seconds to how that works, both during the match and after the match. Ready, go.
So in a match, the first thing you want to do is you want to go to the bathroom and you want to flush whatever happened, whether it be good or bad, all right? Because if it was good and you're harboring on it, like it was only worth 1 point, it doesn't make a difference for the next point. If it was a bad, same precedence, right? So the next place that you want to go to is you want to go to your favorite place in your entire house or in the entire world, and you want to take a moment to relax. Then you want to see yourself walking into your office with your favorite suit, your favorite dress, I don't know, whatever it might be, and set a plan. Think about what's happening in the next point. And in the hallway, compose yourself, chest out, racket up, look confident, time to play. That doesn't apply to what happens after the match. You take an L. I think it does. I think you go to the restroom and you flush that L down the toilet. I see where you go.
Yeah, I think the exact same process actually applies.
For me, I will just add this, 10-second bonus.
Yep.
I will say let it fuel you. Let it fuel. Focus on what were the goals. What did you do well? What did you do poorly? And whatever you can determine you did poorly, work on it. Let it. Anytime I have a bad match, I'm like, I'm going to get out and work hard. I'm not where I want to be. I shouldn't have that L.
I like it.
Which was like 100 years ago because I haven't played a competitive match like 3 years at this point.
There you go.
Unless I count you, but that's not that competitive.
No, it's not a destroy every time. All right, J.R.R. Tolkien, I think, wants to know our Wimbledon gentlemen's quarterfinals predictions. All right, let me pull that up because
ATP, WTA, all the above?
Wimbledon. Are you familiar with Wimbledon? It's this tennis tournament. It's on TV.
Are you familiar? There's a men's tour and a women's tour?
He said gentlemen's. If you
I
just don't listen. Sorry, it's unbelievable.
I didn't hear
all right. So you probably know the men's quarterfinals off the top of your head. Do I even need to pull this up here?
No.
I can't remember who's playing who. I know who's
I can't say anybody's names. All right, so top half of the draw, we have Djokovic and Fucsovics. That's pretty self-explanatory. Novak's going to win.
Djokovic. Okay. I second that.
Yeah.
Better and
hold on, that's the bottom half. So still on the top half.
Kashanov, Shapovalov.
Shapovalov is red hot. I don't know if y'all saw his last match against Bautista Agut, who is amazing on grass. Big old flat ball. Shapovalov kind of handed it to him.
I've seen no scenario where Kashanov even wins a set in that match. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh man, I
think Shapovalov in straights.
Oh, I'll take a bet there.
Maybe in 4. You can't bet live on the internet. It's not allowed.
Okay. Next up, Berrettini and
Good luck.
Up. FAA.
Yeah, FAA. There you go.
Felix Auger.
Let's just go with Felix. I'm
Yeah.
taking the upset there.
Are you?
I'm going Felix.
I'm going Berrettini.
Why?
Huge serve, huge forehand. They're on grass. You heard it here.
You heard it here. Felix is going to upset Berrettini. All right, Federer, your man. I don't even, if we don't, it's Federer for
All
me.
right, I don't even want to put this in the universe.
He's going to lose.
Fed's my guy, right? I mean, shocker. Who's guy? I mean, everybody loves Federer. I'm worried about this one. Herbie's good, and he looked really good against Medvedev today.
Yeah.
So if I was a betting man, I don't know that I put my money on Fed, but I'm rooting for Fed. That's where I stand.
We hope Federer wins. I tend to agree with Nate. I'm a little uneasy. He's going to retire after losing that match.
Stop.
But,
It's got the Olympics and Open.
All right, moving on. JRR, you put us in a bad mood talking about how we think Federer's going to lose, and we don't want him to. Hope you're happy.
That's his third match in a row, though.
Listen to this. Somebody's saying nice things to us. That doesn't happen that often. Hey, guys, Mark Rogers says, hey, guys, this 62-year-old has a real serve for the first time in 40 years because of you.
Oh, I love that.
I can only assume that it's because of you, and I just happened to be standing next to you while you were delivering amazing serve knowledge. But, Mark, thank you. Thank you particularly for saying guys and not just Nate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, man. Really appreciate that.
Colin Byer asks, what do you think is the most difficult shot overall? Nate's two-handed backhand.
The most difficult shot overall?
It's so subjective, right? Like for me, it was the slice backhand for no reason for 6 years because I just had horrible instruction on it.
I'll tell you the one that drives me nuts when my students attempt it is hitting an overhead running forward.
That's not the most difficult. I mean, the most difficult shot overall is the kick serve. That's the final answer.
Are we talking about like as far as I'm talking about to be successful at?
The only information I have is what do you think is the most difficult shot overall?
The most, I mean, be the kicker.
Kick serve.
But as far as like the probability of making it, I would stand with that. Like I know Sampras, God, it was so cool. Like the running, jumping overhead. It's extremely difficult to time. It should be a swing volley or a transition volley 99.9% of the time.
Moving right along here. Oh boy, cool says, how tight do you hold the racket with the non-dominant hand in the ready position? Okay, so I don't know if you have a two-handed backhand or a one-handed backhand. I have a general piece of advice where you should always be holding your racket like you hold a baby bird. I know, make fun of me. You don't want the baby bird to fly away, but you also don't want to crush the baby bird. So if you're holding your racket tight enough where I can see veins in your forearms, that's too tight. And if you're holding your racket so loose, then I can come up and swat it out of your hands. That's too loose. But your non-dominant hand, I'm going to assume two-hander, and then I'll quickly talk about one-hander. If you've got a two-hander, it's got to be tight enough where when you pull that racket back, your bottom hand can shift, right? And then on your two-hander, your top hand is going to be doing all of the work when you swing, right? So it needs to be relaxed because we want to be relaxed when we're hitting ground strokes, but it also needs to be tight enough where your bottom hand can shift. Really the same concept applies for a one-hander when you're up here on the throat. It's got to be firm enough to make that turn on the transition back, but not so tight that you're starting to look like a folded up lawn chair. I'm not even going to let you add anything because I'm so confident that was enough information.
Sure. Well done. Proud of you.
J-Man26, should I use my normal semi-Western grip on my return of serve? I'm just going to say it right now. Will you have a bedtime? Do you have anywhere you're going to be?
I'm good.
We're going to answer every single question tonight. And this could be this could be a real problem. And I'm going to shift down. Ooh, what's the best video PYC has ever posted? Oh. Also, if you don't know Ian Westerman, Ian, I appreciate you watching our stuff, man. Ian runs a channel called Essential Tennis that is much bigger than ours and has some great instruction on it. Definitely check that out. He's a good friend of ours as well.
I don't know.
I'm going to tell you my personal favorite. It's certainly not the best instruction, but the video of Martin teaching me how to hit a tweener, I think got most everyone on earth laughing pretty hard.
It didn't get very many views though.
No.
There's only like 4,000, 5,000 people that saw it.
It's not super highly searched.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yeah. Does our ad count, Ian?
Here, hold on. Ian, does this count? Just click on that. We're not going to play it. Does this? Oh, no, you clicked on it.
What's wrong
with you? That's why Yeah. Does this count? Can't do that. Can't do that
It's an
either.
eraser.
You're an eraser.
I'll tell you the most fun video we ever had was the training video.
Oh,
The training video, I don't know, it's certainly not the best, but it was definitely the most fun, where we talked about how to warm up before a match, and we played toe tag. And
yeah. And I was so out of breath. I couldn't. You guys know how I always try and sell you something at the end of a call. I was like so tired. I was like, I don't know. I don't have anything to say. I'm just out of breath.
Yeah, I don't know. They're so, Ian, I'll tell you this. It's not one of the most popular ones. I can't remember the title. I liked a lot when we did a video where we talked about spacing, and basically the role of the relationship between the chin and the shoulder through the forehand and backhand. I thought that was well done. I thought the production on it was really good. That was like one of the first videos
Nate's
we
like,
did with
hey,
Chris.
good job.
Well, it
Nate.
was Chris. No, we got it was first our videographer.
That's
one of the
true.
first
We
videos
made
we're
a
gonna
switch
have,
to-
and maybe that's why it's got off. It was like just really good production. But yeah, I don't know. They're all special.
If you haven't
in their own
seen,
way.
if you haven't seen the how to hit a tweener video, I don't have a very good tweener. I have no problem admitting that. I can hit it, but it's not pretty. Martin, who is a very good tweener, did a video. He's a very good buddy of ours that hopefully we'll have involved in the channel here more in the future. But give that a watch if you haven't and you're in a bad mood. It'll make you laugh. All right, we're gonna keep plowing through these. We're gonna do our best to just stay here and plow through these tonight. I'm feeling chipper, and Nate gave me the green light, so let's just get to it. J-Man said, should I use my normal semi-western grip on my return of serve, or go to a grip to hit a flatter ball? So I would never suggest, and I'm gonna answer this quickly and keep plowing through, and we'll just tag team these. But I want to make sure we get to everybody. I would never suggest changing your grip on return to serve, period. That would be my answer. If you have a semi-western grip, you should be using a semi-western grip on return to serve. If you have an eastern, you should be using an eastern on return to serve.
The only exception
Lobs.
is, well, if you get handcuffed, right? Like if you get handcuffed and you've got to go to a chip or something like that, or strategic. I mean, like I'll go to a continental grip quite a bit. Like if I get caught in the hips and I have to block, or an eastern. But yeah, like you said, lobs, all that good stuff. But yeah, stay with what you know.
Yep. I'm sure I'm butchering your name. I apologize. Jihan, what racket should I get? My play style is exactly like Kyrgios. I would get whatever the most durable racket is, so it doesn't break. if you play just like Kyrgios.
Yeah, I mean that Yonex, the E-Core, that's what he plays with. That would be if I played.
If you played
Kyrgios.
Exactly like Kyrgios.
If I was Nick Kyrgios, I'd play with Nick Kyrgios' racket.
Yeah, there you go.
Otherwise,
That's a
I'd
good
play
answer. I don't know how it's answered.
Otherwise, I'd play with a Wilson.
Yeah, we would need. we would need. Nate made it funny, guys. We would need more information, Jihan. But yeah, that's tough. Facebook user, I don't know your name. If you're, you'll get. We're stream all this stuff through this program called StreamYard. You'll see this like weird notification that's like allows StreamYard to have your social security number or whatever the heck they ask you for. But to get approval so that we can see your names, you have to do that. So I don't know who you are, but Facebook user asks, hi, Scott and Nate. I'm 34 years old, just starting tennis and really taking it serious. How competitive can I be even though I am starting tennis at a later age? Extremely competitive, particularly if you're in good shape. Some of the best players I've actually coached recreationally, and I'm not going to say that it wouldn't be a better situation to have you brand new at 8 or 9 or 10. But when you have the clean slate of a toddler and the brain of a 34-year-old, progression can happen very fast. So sky's the limit. I think for me, I lost a step at 30, and then I lost like 19 more at 35, and now I'm just like basically crawling on the tennis court. So I think like you're not going to turn pro, but I think you could very realistically get to a 4.550 before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple late 34-year-olds that within a year were 4.0. They're really athletic though. That's a beautiful thing about tennis, right? Like it's a lot between the ears and sending receiving, and it doesn't matter how old you are. When you decline physically, mentally, the sending receiving, the strategy and tactics, that stuff improves. So I love, one of my favorite things is, the young hot guns, like I'll have these kids, 16, 17-year-old kids, and they'll go play one of my 65-year-old, doubles teams that have been playing for the last 40 years, and they get waxed, and they're like, I can't believe I lost to those dudes. And I'm like, Why did you think you should beat them? Why would you? You don't even know how to play doubles.
Right.
But I'm fast and I hit hard. Whatever.
All right, we got here we go. We got some plus questions. Guys, I promise we're going to keep plowing through your Facebook and YouTube questions, but don't forget, plus is more near and dear to our heart. I'm just being honest. And your heart's on this side of your body. This side. We get the mirror effect. They'll never know. All right, let's see here. Wilson asks, let's see here. Hello, Scott. After playing for 30 years with a continental grip and flat, wait, I guess I could just unmute you and we could talk to you. Let's do that. Wilson, I don't know if you're there. I'm going to ask you to unmute. If you can, great. If you can turn on your camera, great. If not, not a big deal. I just asked you to unmute if you can.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
All right. What's going on, man? How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Good. You're welcome to turn on your camera. You don't have to. But I will let you ask your question in person since we have you here live.
Sure. So my question is, I've been playing for about 30 years, and I've been using mostly a continental grip and a version between the continental and semi-western for my forehand. And recently I wanted to get more power, and I got some lessons, and they're switching me to a semi-western.
Okay.
But since I'm doing that, I'm having a little discomfort in my forearm, wrist, elbow, and I really want to avoid tennis elbow because I'm a physician, so I know how difficult is that to treat. So any recommendations on how should I progress to not give up on the semi-western and get more spin, but at the same time not get injured?
Where can I ask? And again, I always have to say this: we're not doctors, of course, but
I don't know the answer.
Yeah, he said he's a doctor.
There you go.
He knows.
But we're not allowed to. You know what I'm saying? So, does it hurt on top or underneath? Does it hurt right here?
It hurts. I don't know if you can see my camera.
Yep.
So it hurts both on the medial aspect right here.
Okay.
The forearm.
Right.
And also on the extensor surface. Not in the epicondyle, not on the lateral epicondyle, which I know is the tennis elbow.
Okay. And only hitting forehands, or it bothers you on the serve as well?
It doesn't bother when I'm playing. So after I come off the court is when I start beating it. So
okay.
That's basically.
I give this advice, and I obviously can't know without seeing you, but most of the cases of tennis elbow that I've run into come from tension. So like a lot of players, and actually somebody else simultaneously over here asked, so JRR asked, how do you guys deal with tennis elbow on your strong hand that's not going away since you have to do this day in and day out? So Nate and I aren't on court, 45, 50 hours a week anymore, but we were for, I was on court for 10 years of my life. Nate was on court for like 65 years of his life. So, we never had tennis elbow because we were never flexing really tight to create that injury in the first place. So my guidance, and again, I'm not a doctor, but my guidance is injury in the form of tennis elbow can really only come from tension, whether it's at contact or whether it's when you're playing. If you're staying relaxed, it's very hard to experience tennis elbow, particularly up top, but even down around, into your forearm. I would guess, without having seen you play, I would guess that's coming from squeezing too tight as you're learning this new semi-western forehand.
One of the things that I thought, especially in the medial aspect here, is that I'm having my contact point too outstretched.
You're making contact with like a straight arm?
Yes, and I think that's a problem, but I'm having a hard time figuring out the contact point because it was a lot way behind before. So now I'm being asked to get it in front of me.
Right.
Yeah.
This position, and that's even when I do this right now, I feel it right here. So how can what should be the ideal contact point for me? Or if you can show me.
That sounds like late contact point with arm extended too, probably, right?
Let me tag in here. Yeah, so
open up?
we zoom me in, just zoom me out just a little bit. So traditionally, if you were playing with the continental grip, the continental forehand contact is traditionally later, right? So I'm going on my tippy toes. So continental, I'm making contact much further back, right? Now, if I'm extending my arm and I'm putting it forward and I switch over to the semi-western, I'll raise my racket so you can't see that. I know we see pictures and like the ideal contact, it's like the arm is straight, but it's also about like not just is the arm straight, is it extended, is the arm out? Here's the most important thing with the semi-western though. When you're swinging out to the ball, this is what we want to see. All right, and you'll notice here my racket is below my wrist. That's the most important aspect of any kind of Western grip, even the Eastern, but definitely with these Western grips, And as the racket works out to contact, I want a little bit of a bend in my arm, right? Remember, Federer, I know his arm's perfectly straight, but he's Eastern, right? I want a little bit of a bend in my arm, and I want to make sure that I'm working with that ball, not just low to high, but like this loose to where the racket is listed below my wrist. So I'm really working out to the ball. Now, when I'm making contact, I want to swing out to extension. So one of my favorite exercises is that when you go out to the court, hit down the line first and then start hitting cross court, right? So if you're drilling, like even if it's just you and a buddy,
Just to find the contact point.
just to find the contact point, right? Like, because what's going to happen is naturally when you hit down the line, you find extension. And then when you go to cross court, you start swinging across your body. So if my arm is straight and I can still have my arm straight and be late. And if I'm late and I go across my body, right? Tennis elbows, as a doctor, you know, it's an overuse injury, right? It's the same way same reason as carpenters and everybody else. If I sit here and I do this all day and I'm turning a screwdriver, right, I'm going to have an issue with that particular tendon. So a lot of times I find it's players that are swinging across their body and their contact, even though the arm is straight, is late, right? But that's, I would go to Scott's point about the tension. I would take swings with 3 fingers on the racket, and I would just focus on hitting down the line and then start working cross court and just really getting that combination of timing and relieving tension. Because otherwise, then you're looking at maybe, I mean, it's a big change from continental to semi-Western. You know, had I been working with you, I might have like slowly worked more towards like an Eastern semi-Western hybrid. Because the contact point and the feel and everything is just so much different. But that's how I would kind of treat it.
But that's the focus point. Contact point, relax your hand. And you may actually have to take a week or 2 off too. Like the injury may be there now. You may need ice and rest before you can get back out there. I've had a lot of players say, I relaxed my hand, it didn't fix anything. It's like if you're injured and you go out on the court and it's not healed yet, you haven't given it time. So maybe give it, you know, at least time to where when you extend sitting here, you know, at your house, you're not feeling that pain.
Are you telling the doctor to go take 3 ibuprofen and call
in an apple in an apple a day? I hear. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, my guess, again, you know, without seeing it, it's hard to know for sure. But my guess is it's either tension or late contact or a combination of the two.
Thank you.
I would not give up on the semi-Western forehand grip, though. There is so much to be gained by making that switch.
I agree.
It's hard after 30 years, and I also changed racket, so I was concerned about the racket. I changed strings.
Hold on, let's talk about that. That's really important.
So I went from a pro staff of like the almost original Federer Edric one, like 20 years ago.
Okay.
To the pure drive, 110.
All right. Ding, 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 ding. The pure drive is the stiffest racket on the market.
Yes. And then my strings, I had a blend of poly and.
No, doctor.
It's also medically proven that every Babolat racket gives you tennis elbow.
Yeah, I went back and then I took out I went with a multi-filament now, so I did not.
Okay, that's good.
But still, that's still the question for me. The pure drive might be a problem. I may have to go to another racket.
Yeah. Get something with some flex in it, and it sounds like you made the right decision with the strings. But yeah, I would dabble with something with more flex. That pure drive, the Aerostorm, notorious for tennis elbow because they're so stiff.
That's also too many changes at once, man. Like that's just gonna mess with your body no matter what.
Yeah, that's pretty figured. So I'm sticking with the racket for now. Change the strings, and I play after that, and I went back to my old grip. Didn't bother me, so
good.
Trying to transition slowly.
Cool.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Pleasure.
Have a great night.
Thanks soon, man.
Yeah, thanks for being a Plus member and for chiming in here. Let me unpin Wilson here. Brandon, I see your question here. I'm going to try and unmute you. I don't know if you have that ability or not. I just asked you to unmute if you can. All right. Yep. We can hear you. What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. So I haven't been coach so far, practiced on serving.
Right.
One of the coach asked me to stay sideways when doing a serve, right? But my new coach asked me to turn my shoulder, just like turn it high, then I hit the ball. So I'm not sure which way is
So basically, he's saying two schools of thought: turn and open up my shoulder, then hit, or stay sideways instead of open and then hit.
It's two different coach though, so I'm not sure which one.
Do you want to just elaborate? One is definitely incorrect. I don't want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think staying sideways is probably closer to the truth. I'm trying to visualize it. Yeah, it's a little bit tough. Staying sideways, you want to uncoil, but it shouldn't be something to where like I'm sideways and then I go to hit and then I'm square, right? Like I'm swinging up. So anytime I'm going through this motion, I'm sideways, but my arm is up and then I'm coming around. It's much more, it resembles more like a pitch. So I feel like staying sideways is probably closer to.
Yeah, I mean, the visual of an NFL quarterback throwing a Hail Mary up is what I think you want to be thinking about in terms of figuring out your shoulder. So like if you had to take a football and throw it 30 yards, you're going to do the same thing with your shoulders as you would to throw a football. And if you don't throw a football and that's not helpful, say so. But yeah, neither are exactly correct. Like Nate was saying, it's sort of a transition from one to the other. Does that make sense?
Right. I mean, I do the coil, but when I turn one, I still stay somewhat sideways. But with the other ones, I make sure your shoulders are straight up.
Actually, Brandon, you're a Plus member, or you wouldn't be in Zoom. Go in your Play Your Court dashboard. We just wrapped up a course on, well, the serve course isn't in there yet, but the 15 mile per hour in 5 days. There's a serve challenge in there.
Oh yeah.
There's progressions in there that go through this, way better than we could right now. Do you have access to that inside your Plus dashboard? Yeah, go in the premium video courses section and look at the 15 mile per hour in 5 day serve challenge. What day is it where we talk about? Day one is all about like toss and feet. It's day 2 or 3? But I mean, I would watch the whole thing. There's like 30 minutes of instruction. There's a bunch of Q&As at the end of each one, but you can watch that whole thing and feel a lot more competent in your serve. There's only 5 days there, and it's about 25, 30 minutes of actual instruction. So I would watch that. If you want to stay on and watch the questions after that, you can. But take a look at that if you want like a super deep dive on the actual mechanics and the progressions of all that stuff.
Right. Thank you. I'll do that.
Cool. And then come back. Like if you're still having questions, obviously, submit some more questions for us or hop on the next Plus live stream. We're going to start, I hope, in like the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we're in a brand new office. You can tell it's brand new because we just have like this weird drab wall behind us. But we're going to try and start getting weekly Q&As like this for our Plus members, just for our Plus members, so they can get in here and ask us questions more often. So be on the lookout for that as well.
If he's a Plus member, send me analysis. Send me
that's a good point. Yeah, man. If you have video footage of your serve, or if you can get out on court and take it as a Plus member, you can send that to Nate as well.
I'll take a look at it. I'll help you along, see what's going on.
Okay, great. I'll definitely try to take a video.
Cool, man.
All right.
Appreciate it. Have a good night. All right, let me remove my pin here. This is a nice thank you from Wilson. Wilson, you're very welcome. All right, we're through our Plus questions. Back to the interwebs. We covered this tennis racket question. Christina Williams asks, what's a good racket for a beginner recreational player? Can you do this in less than a minute? Because I could spend 5 hours answering that question. Like a good racket for a beginner recreational player.
Do it. Challenge. You have 1 minute. Go for it.
All right. When you're shopping, where's the racket?
Set you up for failure.
The clock starts now. All right. I'm going to give you a very quick lesson on racket weight. If you ever walk out on the court and you see an old man that looks very frail hit 100 mile per hour serve out of nowhere, and you're like, how on earth? He's playing with a racket that's extremely head heavy. What that means is when he swings and that racket gets up to parallel, all of the weight up here does all of the work, and it adds all of this power to his serve. This is why you see some older players play with what looks like a horseshoe, and all that weight is going to be here. If you're overweight and 6'3" and 215 pounds like I am, you don't want any power from the racket. So this is my racket right here. All of the weight in the Federer stick is in the handle. This is what I play with. So I don't need any assistance. I want all the power coming from what I've got going on. What I recommend typically for beginner and recreational players, a lot of it's going to depend on your age. A lot of it's going to depend on your strength. Most typically, you're looking for something that's a little more evenly balanced, listening a little bit more towards head heavy. the Wilson burn, I would say 9 times out of 10 is where I end up recommending. So without any more information, that's what I will say, Christina, the Wilson burn. Also, make sure you go online and make sure you understand grip size. Most players, when they're getting started, don't understand how important it is to buy the right size grip. There are all kinds of tutorials on how to find the right grip, but the general sizing idea is you should have enough space to slide, your index finger in between your hand here.
Mm-hmm. I'd check out the Clash too. Clash is a great racket for
Oh,
beginners.
that's true. Yeah, actually, that's the
Beginners
number one rec racket on the market right now.
Yep.
So, Christina, hopefully that helps. All right, Justin asks, how do I try to get better when I feel like I've hit a wall or plateaued? I'm maybe a 4-0 player, and I know I can be better, but I don't feel like I'm getting better. So this is going to sound really biased, but our coaching philosophy heavily revolves around the idea that a lot of rec players only focus on technique and they never learn the mental aspects of the game. So a lot of you guys, if you've been out there and you've been playing matches, and this works for doubles too, if you're stuck at the same skill level and all you're doing is working on your technique, there is definitely a ceiling you're going to hit on technique alone. You've got to learn the mental side of the game to sort of unlock that next layer, to peel back that next layer of the onion, so to speak. Anything you want to add there? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, typically technique is what's holding us back, unless it's just lack of experience in match play. But it sounds like you play quite a bit, so kind of get under the hood, figure out like what it is, what's going to pay the most margin. If it's your serve, get out there and work on your serve. If you got a great forehand, right? Stop trying to make it like the greatest forehand of all time. Like find the biggest weakness and start work there. That's typically where we're going to find our biggest dividends.
And we just gave you completely conflicting advice, so good luck figuring out which one of those to do.
I wasn't even listening to you. So it's like,
I was like, too many players focus on technique, and you're like, focus on your technique.
No. I just said weakness. I said whatever your biggest weakness is.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Make sure you dabble with the strategy side of things. It depends on where you are. So as a 4-0 player, typically you've probably had a decent amount of instruction on your technique, right? So if you feel like you're plateauing because like my technique looks great, I can't beat these guys, it's not your technique, it's your strategy. If you feel like, all right, like I've never had a lesson before and off pure athleticism, I'm chasing a bunch of balls down. So one of those two answers is right. Thanks, Nate. I was like, our coaching philosophy is it's not about technique.
I agree with you.
like,
I was just saying if there's a glaring weakness, what immediately came to my head, I was like, there's a lot of players that I know that play the 4-lever that are really, really good athletes. And it's like they do all these things well, and there's just one major hole.
Yeah,
but you're right. Like
if
a
weak backhand, second serve.
I was going more, But if they're an experienced player, typically they're not playing chess, they're playing checkers.
Cool. I'm gonna butcher this. I think I'm not even gonna try and say it. M La Queen 001. There's a bunch of. Anyway, I'm in my mid-40s and just started playing tennis last year. I'm visually impaired in one eye. What do you recommend for a player like me who has issues with depth perception? I'm going to be honest, I've never actually run into this issue as a coach.
Yeah.
I will rarely say I don't know, but I'm going to say I don't know. Do you know?
I mean, I don't know that I do. I mean, most of us were dominant in one eye. So let's hope, the good eye is the dominant eye. But that is tough. Like peripherally, the game is built upon like your peripheral. It feels to me like doubles would definitely be the easiest because everything is played fairly straight ahead to some degree. I'm not saying entirely. Singles, it's easy to get flanked. You have a lot of blind spots.
I think reps would help. I think it's going to be a challenge for sure. I mean, so my wife's not going to appreciate this story, but so my wife always asks, me to get on the tennis court with her. She actually has a horrible vision, like those thick, like her contacts are like she has thick glasses. Mm-hmm. So she got on the tennis court without eyewear on, and it was just like she couldn't time the ball for the first 10 minutes we were out there. And it wasn't like she's very athletic, like wasn't like a lack of ability to make contact with the ball. It was like depth perception, but it did get better. As the hour went on. So, I don't have enough experience with it to give you a more formal answer, but I do think the more reps that you put in, the better it's going to get. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for you there. Not a ton of experience.
Keep at it, man. Yep. Yeah, I mean, definitely it's awesome that you're out on the court. Just stay with it.
All right. Matthew C. says, why is serve and volley not taught more at the rec level?
Good question. Great question. Love the serve and volley. In singles, it's more about the tech, right? Like the rackets are super powerful now. The strings give you access to a ton of spin.
He's got to be talking about singles because obviously the serve and volley is still taught in doubles, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna assume Matthew, we're gonna assume singles. I'll just give you a quick little visual demonstration. I mean, honestly, when you get up here as, let me get a thicker X here. When you get up here, oh, that's too big. Good Lord, sorry. Mental note, never use that ever again. All right, when you get up here, I mean, you can just sort of see it, right? Like, it's just too much space, right? It's just very hard to cover this quantity of space to the outer thirds of the court. Unless you're serving T, there's always going to be an angle to beat you in singles. So I think we would coach it as a response, but not as a predetermined decision most of the time in singles, right? Like, for me, if I see that player retry, knowing that ball comes off my strings, that I've done real damage, then I will sneak in behind it. But I will say, you know, I just don't think with the new technology that's out there, as fast as the ball moves, you know, even at the 3-5-4-0 level, it's just too much court space to cover in singles. And I think that's why, you know, it's being taught a lot less these days.
But if you got a good kicker or you got a good slider, get to net.
Yeah.
Why not? Mix it in.
Yeah, it's not to say you shouldn't do it. Scooby-Doo, where are you? Says already downloaded to our app.
Cool.
What's the app called? Ashley says it's very weird. So it's brand newish in the App Store. I know a lot of you are like, wait, what? I missed the first half of this. There's an app. Yeah, we're officially launching our app tomorrow, but it is actually in the App Store. We just didn't tell everybody yet because we are working the last kinks out of it. If you are on an iPhone, you have got to search Play Your Court Tennis. It will show up. Of course, it's going to eventually index at just Play Your Court. I believe it's already done so if you're on an Android. So search Play Your Court. If it doesn't show up, search Play Your Court Tennis, and you'll be able to download it. Let's see here. Ramel says, my boy Scott would hit a buttery soft drop volley in all situations. Very true. Mark asks, let's see. Okay, I recently started up with Play Your Court and played 3 opponents for rec matches. Now I'm having trouble finding other players who respond. So I know a lot of you guys are in our community. Make sure you're using the Find a Partner feature. The number one mistake that I hear when I'm talking to users is they're going in there and they're messaging one person at a time. We can't control that, right? And they may have the notifications turned off. Like we obviously can't control privacy settings on your phone. The app is actually going to make hopefully a huge improvement there. But when you message one player, you know, obviously Nate and I can't go to their house and make sure they respond. So create that find. I mean, we could. Maybe that's the next step. But yeah, create one of those find a partner requests, Mark. That is definitely the way. That goes out to everybody in your area. Also, if you look in the find a partner section, you'll see a list of all the people in the last 4 weeks at your skill level that are actively looking. So that's going to be the fastest way to connect with more players in your area.
And play with the filters, right? Like
Absolutely too. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends. This is so funny. So like on our ads, people will comment on our ads, how many players are in my area? And like the answer is we don't know because are you willing to play with men or women? Do you just want to practice? Do you want to play matches? Are you willing to travel 1 mile? Are you willing to travel 30 miles? Like the answer is we don't know. So get in there and play around with the filters and set it to what you're comfortable with, and then you can see the list. Man, we're getting a lot of questions about our platform here. What does the PYC number mean, please? So we covered this earlier. It is a proprietary rating system. It is built to help you connect with people that are at your same skill level. So if you're a Play Your Court 50, you should be looking for people around a Play Your Court 50. That's going to guarantee you have evenly matched people to play against. I'm going to butcher this name again. I'm really sorry. Zahi Lian, I believe, says, I am 5 feet tall. How can I improve my kick serve?
How to improve the kick serve at
5 feet tall.
5 feet tall.
Are you fading? Wake up.
No. So I was reading, actually, Wilson had it. No, it was just good advice. Just saying this about what the vision. Yeah, that's good, Wilson. We appreciate that.
Tag feedback. That in. Yeah, so Wilson's a doctor, obviously more qualified to answer the vision question. use her hand to guide and help with the depth perception.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so just tracking the ball, kind of like you're teeing up in golf. Use the hand to tee it up. That's solid. At 5 feet tall, as far as the kick serve. So look, your levers aren't going to be as long. I mean, that's the facts of it. But as far as developing the kick serve, it's more about the angle to the ball, right? And so what often ends up happening is when we try to hit the kick serve, we aim and we hit to a target, right? And that's what kills the serve or the kick, the potential of the kick. We want to make sure that we're hitting up on the ball, and we want to make sure that we're keeping our body sideways. And it's this path of making sure the racket is under the ball and making that contact, and then working out to where the arm is staying parallel to the baseline. And I think one of the best drills is really focusing on keeping the body sideways and then finishing with the arm down. And that's helping develop that kick. Now, the only thing with height is like, yes, the trajectory is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be harder at 5 feet, it's going to be harder to find pinpoint targets. And you may not get the velocity, you may not be hitting a $120 kicker, but because you're hitting up on the ball, height doesn't necessarily matter on whether you can or you cannot hit a kick serve on. I mean, college, a guy on our team was 5'5" and had a nasty kick serve.
Michael Chang had a ferocious kick serve. Yeah,
but it's just technique. Focus on the technique, and I think that's where you're going to find the biggest dividends on that kicker.
Cool. Love it. Scott Levy just got the app. How can I tell when my membership expires? Also, if I bought courses, why don't I see them there? Two fantastic questions. One, you're not technically supposed to know it exists yet. So this week you will see any of the purchases you bought transfer over into your account. So you will see those start to show up. I believe by this weekend. It was in the last app push. So whenever Apple gets the latest version up in the store, you'll see those there. And how you can tell if your membership expires, if you go into the membership preferences, you've got to do this on desktop. So log into your account the same way you always did. And under your account section, there's a section called membership preferences, and it'll show you your next billing date. And there's a little cancellation button there if you need to cancel. Let's see here. Ooh, is the Clash or Wilson Blade better? From Dunkerl, Dunkrl. I don't know what that.
I think it just depends on what you want as a player, right?
It also depends on who you are as a player, as far as like skill level, weight, size.
Yeah,
they're both awesome rackets. Like, depending on, I mean, if you're deciding between the two, I would just demo them both and whatever feels better. I think the Clash is a little more universal. I mean, I know 5.0s that play with it, and I know 2.0s that play with it. Right.
Super soft. It has amazing, like tennis elbow. If you have any issues with your arm, it's supposed to be the racket for it.
Yeah.
It's definitely soft to contact. The Blade, Blade's going to be a little bit of what would be considered a player's racket, but you can always get the lighter version, either the Serena version that's a bigger head size. Super accommodating. But yeah, demo them. Different structure, different folks.
Yep. Starbold asks, why do I have to pay before I can see if there is anyone in my area to play? Actually, if you fill out the little membership, so when you go through the web funnel to sign up, after you enter your zip code, you're actually going to see the list on the right of all the players in your area, and there's a little map that has all the map pins. So you can get a general idea. But again, like, we don't know what your skill level is. We don't know what level of disparity you're willing to play with. We don't know if you're willing to play with men or women. We don't know if you're looking for practice matches, singles or doubles. So once you answer all that and set your membership preferences inside the platform, you'll get a lot more information. And there's a 30-day no questions asked refund policy, and it's $6. So check it out. Maverick says, how many active users are on the platform, and what does the black small circle with numbers in it mean? There are, I think, over 25,000 now, right?
Yeah,
didn't we just cross
over 27?
Yeah, pushing 27. And the black small circle is your player court rating. Again, that's your the rating number that helps you figure out who you should be playing matches and practicing against. Thanks for the ability to meet up and play with more serious players. This is Facebook user. I can't see your name. I'm sorry. But it says, thanks for the ability to meet up and play with more serious players. I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and have no problems getting a match. Bravo to you guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's awesome. Good to hear.
How can you tell when it's time to get a new racket? ER Harris asks. I know we're going faster, guys. I just want to make sure we get to you all. We're going on an hour and a half here. We've got a good list here, so we're going to just keep plowing through. we do this so rarely. I feel like it's just Christmas. Let's get after it.
There you go. When to get a new racket? Anytime you're getting fractures, any kind of hairline in the frame itself, it's cracked. And the integrity, it doesn't mean, if it's 3 weeks old and you get it, but like if you're playing with a racket 5 years old and it's got little hairline, fractures in it, it's time to trade it in.
Yeah, I would agree. You can sort of feel if you pick up a new racket, if it feels like it's got more pop, then you're playing with a racket that's too old too, right?
Yeah, and the tech, like if you're playing with a racket that's older than 10 years old, the tech has changed a lot. Even 5 years, the tech is changing much faster. When we were playing, it was, the tech was very slow. So you could play with the same racket for 20 years, right? It didn't really necessarily make a difference. But these days, the tech is changing really, really fast. If it's 5-7 years old, maybe start investigating. If it's over 10 years old,
definitely time
to change it in.
For sure. 40 Love, I'm going to answer this one quickly because this is so funny. I get this question a lot. So what tactics or strategies are effective playing against junior high school boys? So like, basically they're asking how do you beat junior level players? My answer there is let them beat themselves. So we have a video that we put on YouTube called the Rule of Three. And the Rule of Three is basically put 3 balls in the court before you try something stupid, right? So most players, I mean, really even all the way up to like 4-5, 5 level players will beat themselves if you just let them. So high margin over the net. What's your 4x4? 4x4, 4 feet over the net, 4 feet inside the lines. Let the players make the mistakes. That would be my guidance there.
Yep.
Lefna asks, I often pull my eyes off the ball. How do I keep them on the ball? Kenda Hart did something awesome. Do you remember that?
Well, I mean, it's actually relatively easy. Wherever your head goes, your eyes are going to go.
Right.
So don't focus on like what your eyes are doing. Focus on what your head is doing. So it's like anything else. Like we're always we want to witness what's happening, right? So a lot of times when we're playing tennis, our eyes go down to the ball and then we're looking to see what our opponent's doing, or we're trying to watch the ball too early, how good or how bad it is. Try to keep the head fixed through contacts, right? So, I mean, one of my favorite, it's still for me, it's probably one of the biggest things that helped with my ground strokes. But as I'm eating the ball, I want my chin to my hitting shoulder, right? And then from there, as my hitting shoulder comes around, so will my chin, right? But that chin to shoulder will help everything work together. And there's no way not to see the ball. If I have my head down to contact, it's either that or I'm looking behind me, so I'm going to see the ball correctly.
That's good coaching. I've actually never heard that.
We did a video on it. You don't remember?
I wasn't there because sometimes you got to do video shoots by yourself.
I think he was. I think he wasn't listening.
Daniel, I see you here. So you said what range PYC rating do you suggest playing against? At the moment, I'm a 52. Is 62 high? Is 42 low? So a 10-point disparity should keep you somewhat competitive. So to put it in perspective, like a 3-0 would be around a 50, a 3-5 would be around a 60, right? So, and that's like a benchmark 3-0, benchmark 3-5, right? So like that would be, not the greatest match. So like 5 to 7 points is really what I would recommend if you want a competitive match. That said, if you're practicing, I mean, I'm a 5-5 and Nate's a 3-0, and we practice together all the time. So
let's go.
No, but for real, I mean, 10 points disparity for practicing. If you're looking for a really competitive match, 5 points in either direction should be about right. Bill Cody says, so I've been out of tennis for 20 years. What happened to Prince? They seem to have fallen off the tour and sales are way down. I'm still rocking an Equip 98 LB. They went bankrupt, didn't they?
I do believe they were bought out at some point.
I think they went bankrupt and then revived, bought out, or maybe they were going to go bankrupt and were bought out and then revived. I know that they weren't on the market for a handful of years.
They just didn't keep up. I mean, as a junior, that was the racket. Like if you were good, you played with a Prince, right? I mean, I played with the CTS approach for a long time, and there was a lot of really good Prince frames. But yeah, I just didn't keep up with the tech, and then innovation. Other companies, the Wilsons and Babalots of the world moved in.
Pro staff for life, Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and that's kind of it. Like Wilson and Head had always had their staples. I mean, The pro staff is kind of the holy grail of rackets, right? And that's been made. I mean, the Prestige is essentially the pro staff. If you look at the Babolat, the Tour, the Pure Tour, basically the same weight, same swing weight as the pro stuff as well. So it's just, you just need one good one.
That's right.
And do it over and over and over again.
Let's see here. Again, I don't know your name. I'm sorry. Facebook user asks, when exactly does the 60 seconds of rest time between court change begin? I'm embarrassed. I don't actually know the answer to that. Is it
when exactly does the 60 seconds of rest time on the court
between the
begin?
So like when you're switching courts?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, is
it when you sit down?
It's once you've got the balls off you. It's like once you've actually moved towards changing sides or sitting down. Yeah, but like the clock shouldn't start when you're gathering your towel or the balls. But I could be wrong. I mean, ATP, it's the minute that the last point's over, the clock is ticking. But they leave leeway. Like no one's gonna, especially with COVID now, like with the towels being way across, like people aren't bringing you the towels, everything else. Like you and I were just at Wimbledon, when they're not bringing the pros their towels, then they're giving some leeway.
I hate it when they don't get me my towel quick enough.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, like in recreational play, our level of play, everyone else out there playing, unless somebody's taking an egregious amount of time or changeovers, if somebody has their clock out, that's super weird.
Yeah.
Like 15 seconds.
Yeah, you don't see that much. It's more like in between points where you're seeing umpires get weird. The changeovers don't seem to be as big of a thing.
Yeah.
B-Man, I think it's Busey, says, what are your thoughts on the birthday hat wars going on? I don't know what that is to you.
What's your thoughts on the birthday hat wars? Yeah, you know, he's talking about like, so Ryan Reedy's with 2 minutes. He's the birthday hat.
Right.
So it's funny.
Is there a war going on I'm unaware of?
I don't think there's a war. Everybody just has their own tip. And the funny thing is, like, none of it's new, right? Like, I mean, the saluting. So, guys, what they're talking about is basically the action of the racket, right? And so, you know, Ryan has the birthday hat, which the addition of a birthday hat, I think, is brilliant because it stays in your head.
I loved his video.
When I was a kid.
He's the first person on the internet I ever saw explain it with a birthday hat. But like I remember when I was 12 years old, Andy told me he put an orange cone on my head. It's the same instruction.
Dave got a cone on my head, did the same exact thing. Saluting's really big now. People are talking about saluting. It's just a good way to think about it. Putting the ball on top of the racket here and pulling it this way. They're all the same tip and they're all really good tips. There's no right one. They're all really good.
Yeah.
But anybody out there that's like, well, this was my tip first, unless they copyrighted it back in 1940, it wasn't their tip.
Yeah.
It's been around a long, long, long time.
Don't get salty. We're all teaching very similar things.
Yeah. And as coaches, like we should all encourage like innovation.
For sure.
We shouldn't we should all be going, hey, cool. Like you said it. And really good coaching, that's what it is, right? Like you may say the same thing I did, but you say it in a manner that the student comprehends. Great job. That's a win.
I'll be the first to admit, and I rarely say nice things about Nate, so brace yourself, but Nate is a much better technique coach than I am. So when we have students on here, private training, he's delivering instruction. I obviously understand the things that he's delivering, but sometimes I can simplify. Like sometimes my brain's just small enough to say it in an easier way for somebody to understand it better coming from a different analogy. So, I mean, that's why it's so important, to have multiple coaches. I mean, I had them growing up. I don't think it's a bad thing every once in a while to have a different coach, give you their perspective, or you just hear the same information a different way.
For sure.
Right on time. Vishal says, Nate is the best coach on the internet I have seen. Sorry, Scott, you were very good too. It's okay.
Thanks, man.
That's
I appreciate that. That's super nice of you. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, Vishal, super nice dude. Nate is the best coach on the internet. That's why I brought him into Player Court. Best hire I've ever made, except for myself, of course. All right. Eric B says, how to beat a guy who slices, drop shots, and lobs every time. We call that a pusher. I'm going to do this in less than a minute.
That's our junk baller.
Pusher, junk baller. Yeah. Yep. Actually, I think one of our most successful YouTube videos of all time, how to beat the pusher. Definitely watch that, Eric B, if you haven't already. But look, the idea here is patience and attacking at the right opportunities. So I'm going to do this extremely quickly. If I can find an eraser extremely quickly. So extremely quickly. Take the court, a singles court, and take each half of it and cut it in half to where you've got inside thirds of the court. And I'm sure I'm not straight here, but you get the idea. So you've got this big inside third and you've got these outside thirds. When a ball is hit in the outside thirds, you are on defense. When you're playing somebody who slices, drop shots, pushes, and they're in these outer thirds of the court, the reason you're losing to pushers is because you are trying to play offense when you are technically on defense. When you're pushed back, same situation. You're on defense. You've got to be patient and play a defensive cross-court high ball. When you get the ball in the inner thirds of the court or when you're pulled inside the baseline, that is when you need to attack. So that is the number one mistake. If I'm watching players lose to pushers over and over and over again in singles, what's happening is they get impatient. They go for an attack shot when they're out of position, when they're on defense, when the percentages are lower, and that's why pushers beat us. They just keep putting the ball back in the court ever so slightly into the outer thirds, and they let us beat ourselves. I could go into a lot more depth, but if you just go to our YouTube channel and search how to beat a pusher, I think our video will show up probably as one of the first or second.
Or junk baller, yeah.
Junk baller.
The two separate videos.
Yep. All right. We're getting close here.
And just to be clear, everybody, we didn't give them these derogatory names. I don't really appreciate them. I've never been a fan. It drives me nuts when students are like, I hate that. He or she's a pusher. And it's like, he or she's a winner because they obviously just beat you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's
It's
why
just
people hate pushers so much because they always lose to them, right?
Yeah, it's just a weird classification. And then we get stuck using the word because that's what
everybody identifies.
Everybody identifies, right? But there's no right way to play this game.
Yep.
Right. And if they do it well and they're winning, then you need to get better and figure out how to beat them. But saying nasty things about them because you can't beat them, well, that's just, I don't know.
What is the
poor
saying?
Sportsmanship?
They hate us because they ain't us, right? Like that's what the pushers are saying. They're like, yeah, I'm sure you do hate us since we beat you in the semis of every tournament.
Yeah.
All right. Again, I don't know your name. I'm sorry, but Facebook user, man, we are going here. This was almost an hour ago. Said, when do you use the semi-Western grip? That's a very vague question, but I would hope if you're just learning, that's what we would coach 99 out of 100 players is the grip to use on your forehand. Yeah, I mean, it's really on day one, right? I think when he's saying when, I'm assuming that's like the question is the progression as a player.
It's like continental grip on the serve. It's our thing, and I love my analogies. It's like, do you want to have the Yugo or do you want to have the Lamborghini, right? So it's like you can start with a continental grip on your forehand, but it's always going to be a Yugo, right? Or you can have the Lamborghini, and it may be difficult in the beginning. The handling and everything else may be really tough, but eventually you're going to learn how to drive it. Now going back to our friend the doctor, obviously if you're having pain or something's happening, then you've got to re-examine it. But proper coaching, even if it's self-coaching, you can teach yourself through proper instruction, whether it be YouTube or anything else. Just take it slow. Just don't jump in the deep end with it. Work through little progressions. Stand a foot away from the net and work through that semi-Western to clear the net. But yeah, as soon as possible.
For sure. Tennis 979. Should high school coaches mainly let the players hit a lot of balls or try and teach technique? This is a hard one because a lot of it really depends on your background as a high school tennis coach. Like my high school tennis coach was a math teacher that played at a 3.0 level and had no idea. I mean, if you've got the skill set where you understand technique fundamentals, then absolutely impart your knowledge on your students. Hitting, I mean, a lot of reps are important also. So I would say, and you're welcome to add to this, but I think it's a pretty simple answer. If you've got the skill set, absolutely spend some time on technique.
They're handcuffed. That's my experience working with high school coaches. I coach a lot of other coaches, and what they run into is that they've got 16 kids in the team, and they're splitting 6 courts, or maybe they only have 6 courts. They don't have the resources, and they can't spend time with every single kid doing technique. So here's my best advice for you high school coaches: put targets down, right? The kids will figure it out. The reps are important. If they're working cross court, take a towel and put it in a specific spot on the cross court and give them something to aim for. And even if the technique's not perfect, they're working towards goals, and they'll start developing their own technique because they're going to learn how to target. That's all I got on that.
Love it. Wilson in Plus over here asks if we have training camps. If so, how can you join? If not, would you consider them? So Wilson, we do. I'm not going to go through this. So Wilson, if you go to PlayYourCourt.com, which is our homepage, let me just do this on my laptop so I don't tell you wrong. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a drop-down that says Services, and then Tennis Clinics with Scott and Nate. If you click on that, you'll see 4 different options there. We've got a private technique training that we do. We do a single strategy and tactics workshop, a doubles movement workshop, and a serve workshop. We actually have 2 spots left in a serve workshop that starts a week from Friday.
Yeah.
So there's only 8 people that we bring
Coming
in.
soon.
Still have 2 spots. If you want to jump in that, shoot us a message and let us know.
And if anybody wants to go to DC with us, that's coming up, right?
Hold on. Don't announce that formally yet.
Okay, sorry.
You know what? Forget it. It's fine. I'm pretty sure we are purchasing. If you guys know Fuzzy Yellow Balls, Will Hamilton from Fuzzy Yellow Balls, really good friend of ours. We spend a lot of time. He's up in DC, so every summer we try and hang out at the City Open. This year, I think our 2 brands are going to try and split a suite at the tournament and then do a little 2-day event for you guys. So if that's something you're interested in, keep your eyes on your email. We'll be talking about that later this week, I'm sure. I love this question, and you're going to hate it, and I love that even more. Starbolt says, any good tennis discords? Yes, I believe Juan Martín Del Potro is the best tennis player of all time, and Nate does not.
So dumb.
I'll tell you.
Argument.
So when we're going to launch a podcast eventually, and this is absolutely going to be the first episode, Juan Martín Del Potro is the best tennis player of all time because if you look at how long he's actually been able to play tennis uninjured, he's always in the top 10. He's winning Grand Slams off of Roger Federer. If you just give that man a healthy life, he's in charge of the Grand Slam titles right now. Firmly believe it. Nate doesn't. That's our tennis Discord, Starbolt.
Yeah. How many Grand Slams did he win when he was playing?
I don't want to talk about that.
I love the guy. I think
His
he's
wrist
a great
hurt.
player, but yeah.
Monroe says, hey guys, I appreciate your videos on the serves. It's helped my own serve a lot. Monroe, I appreciate that. He says, I'm just curious why ATP pros pronate their slice serves. Does it add more pace if hit right?
They don't all. It's some have discontinued pronation, some have continued pronation. You can. I don't want to say it's 50-50 because it's not. But so here's the difference. When we're learning the slice serve, not pronating, right? The discontinued pronation, basically coming through with the racket and working through this is going to be the easiest way to learn it. Now, when you get through acceleration on what's happening is as you're coming through, even though you're slicing, you start working through pronation. But some players, even on the professional tours, they come through and they're making contact and they're working through that slice. They're still leading with the edge. And so especially, so for myself included, one of my favorite tips is finishing with the palm up. If you're finishing with the palm up, a lot of times you're going to have discontinued pronation. And what that means is your arm is going to kind of pronate, but then you're going to come back through. It's just not a full pronation to where the palm goes off to the side. But they both work effectively. Yeah, I mean, continued pronation may give you a little bit more pop, but I don't think it's a ton.
Wilson, I dropped that link in the Zoom chat for you there, dude. I just messaged you directly on there. Varun says, are you guys sponsored by Wilson? So I want to address this, and I'm sure our Wilson sponsorship will appreciate this. Yes, but because we chose them, not just because. So like I said, we were playing with Babolat and consciously called Wilson and said, look, we want to play with the Blade. I want to play with the Pro Staff. These are the rackets that we like. We have a sponsorship deal with Babolat. We would like to switch to Wilson. So this is not like we're pushing product on you because of a sponsorship. We do have a big enough community and, a sizable YouTube channel. We can kind of choose which racket manufacturer we work with. We chose Wilson because we believe it's the best product. So yes, but that is not why we push Wilson product.
Aren't you special?
I'm just being honest. I'm just saying, like, I think everybody's like, well, of course they recommend Wilson.
Yeah.
I'm like, I recommend Wilson because it's the best stick. Let's see here. XL Tempest says, for high school tennis, is spin or flat hitting better? I'm going to say spin because of what we talked about earlier, where if you can just let players beat themselves, they will. Flat does not follow the 4x4 rules as much. It's creating too much.
Yeah.
The
ceiling's way higher.
For
Learning
sure.
to hit spin, their ceiling's way higher. I would go spin.
For sure. Varun says, how do you get a perfect toss for the serve? My toss is never a straight up and guys to the side and has a lot of spin at times. How do I prevent that and get a simple, proper toss? Let me grab a tennis ball. I'm going to do my tulip tip, right?
Your tulip tip. So while he's gone real quick, outside of the hand, the main thing, make sure you're tossing with your shoulder and you're locking out your arm. All right. So a lot of times, like we see the arm bending here, the wrist bending here. Lock it all out and just raise with your shoulder. All right. We don't want too many moving parts on the toss.
And Varun, if you're in the community, if you're a Plus member, I guess you're not because you would be in the Zoom. But if you are a Plus member, you have access to a serve challenge that we did. But yeah, as Nate was talking about, you don't want bend in your wrist. You don't want bend in your elbow. So get rid of all the joints. Hold the ball with your fingertips. There's 2 accepted ways to do it with your fingertips, palm facing up, or we've got what we call ice cream cone, which you're just holding with your 3 fingers. And the goal is at eye level, where, regardless of which grip you're using, to just open your fingers so that it's not rolling off your fingertips. If the ball is spinning a lot, it's because it's rolling off your fingertips in one direction or another.
Yep. Keep it out of that palm, my man.
Glenn Parker asks, what's the topic tonight? The topic tonight is Ask Us Anything. What are some good serve drills you can do on your own? Man.
I mean, there's so many. I'll go back to what I was saying with the high school coaches. Always put targets down. Always put targets down when you're serving, and work through all your different spins. People get bored with serving because you're not competing. Doesn't mean you can't compete if you're by yourself. Play a game by yourself and with targets, right? So kind of like the introduction version is when you get out there, if you make the serve in, it's your point. If you double fault, you lose the point. And then put targets down and call it and be accountable for it. Say, all right, I'm going to slice out wide to the deuce court. And if you accidentally hit through the middle, you lose the point. And those are the kind of competitive things that'll keep us engaged enough that we'll practice through our serves. What are you laughing about, Giggles?
Bill Hall. Shout out to Bill Hall. So today is actually a big day. So we hired a new web developer, really good friend of ours, very good tennis player
great dude.
that has one of like the best two-handed backhands in all of Hampton Roads where we live. And he's out there messing with a one-hander. It would be like Federer out there like just tinkering with a two-hander. And so he very sarcastically just asked us any tips on someone looking to transition from a two-handed backhand to a one-handed backhand. Yeah,
well, we can hang out, man. We can talk all about the beauty of the one-hander.
Yeah. You're not allowed to, Bill. That's the answer. Rodrigo says, I practice the racket drop drills a lot, but can never execute it during an actual serve. I'm also hurting my shoulder in the process. Any mental tips other than the drills from your serve clinic? Mental tips.
So
there's tension there is what it sounds like.
My buddy Art, a PYC Plus member, I did a video analysis for him today. We're going to actually turn it into a YouTube video because I thought his case is so common for most people. What ends up happening a lot is when I'm going to pull this up right quick.
Yeah, do you think? You've been waiting. This video has been on your iPad.
I just had it up here as like a backdrop. That's actually not the one I want. I want this one. When we go through our serve motion, too often what happens is that we lock out our hips. All right. So this is FAA. Felix. You got it? Alazine. I was going to see if you're going to try to pronounce it. But what ends up happening is that the chest ends up rotating and the hips lock out. So what we're looking at is in the chest, we want about 50% of rotation and then 10% in through the hips. But what I want you to see here is in this motion, really look and see where his hips are facing, right? And what this is going to do, it's going to enable that racket drop, just like what we were talking about. And it's going to make sure that we get into this horizontal abduction. All right, horizontal abduction, horizontal, and the abduction is the arm moving back this way. Okay, so earlier, the gentleman that we were talking to about the racket scratch position, when we get uncoiled like this, you'll notice here as the racket drops, look at all that space from the body. All right, so what ends up happening is if you try to force the racket drop and the racket ends up tight to your body, so say the racket is through here, you're going to get shoulder impingement because your shoulder shouldn't operate that way. I should have my shoulder, just like throwing a baseball, I want to have everything out. And that's what we want to be focusing on. So my tip is focus more on uncoiling at about 10% with the hips, right? You can see, I'll just highlight this. See the Adidas? See how it's actually facing us as a viewer from behind him? That's how much the hips are still uncoiling. He's doing this, right? I'm not talking about full Johnny Mac, but this part's important because it helps put the shoulder, it helps put the hitting arm into a position that makes it a whole lot easier to achieve a racket drop without hurting the shoulder.
This is why Nate's in charge of technique here at Play Your Court, ladies and gentlemen. He is definitely better at it than I am.
You just learn. You're like,
I'm like taking notes.
Scott's like, I want to work on my serve tomorrow.
We're gonna have to end this live stream.
Some service woes. We're gonna work through it.
That's right.
But not all the way because I don't need his serve. I don't need him getting.
You don't
better.
need me serving 140 at you.
I'm not worried about that.
All right, Rodrigo. Hopefully that helps. If not, I don't know what to tell you because Nate's pretty good. Samuel says, if you're hitting an open stance forehand, are you ever not going to be playing off your front foot, or vice versa? With a closed stance, are you ever going to be playing off the front? I think I can address this extremely quickly. On open stance, I'm right-handed, open stance, I'm going to set that right foot out. My weight should be on my right foot. If I'm closed stance, it should really only be because I'm stepping into my front foot.
Yeah, if I'm understanding right, he's asking, like, does it have to be one or the other? No. Like, Herbie Hercox, his whole strategy going into play Medvedev Day, he called it front foot tennis. Obviously, a professional player, top 20 in the world, obviously he hits a lot of open stance forehands out of necessity. But when he says front foot tennis, he's going to the ball. He's looking to step into the ball. And I will say, I think the biggest problem we see in tennis today is that we have way too many players trying to hit open stance when they should be looking to step in. So you want to have both. Absolutely. As much as you can, you want to have both.
Starbolt says it's asking me to pay first after I answer the question. Starbolt, I'll make you a deal. If you sign up for the $5.99 membership and you don't love it, I will personally drive to your house and give you $6.01. So it's a 2 cents profit. Give it a shot. I didn't know. Okay, Scott Levy says ABG bought Prince. You know who ABG is?
I don't.
I didn't know that. But
Scott, drop that in here. Who's ABG?
Yeah, Scott, if you're still watching, tell us who ABG is. Josh says, do you think Federer will beat, is it Hercax?
Yeah,
Herbie
like
Hercax.
Herbie.
Yeah, we were talking about that
hope
earlier.
so.
We hope so, but we don't think so. It pains us to say. He, ha, 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 asks, what's your, that's a fantastic screen name.
Pretty good. Yeah.
What's your take on whether or not the wrist is ever consciously activated during a forehand stroke? I've heard conflicting opinions from coaches, shoulder-based swings versus wrist-based, etc. That's a very advanced question, which we know we're going to pass to our in-house technique expert, Nathan Bowling.
Yeah, you shouldn't actively be looking to rotate the wrist. You shouldn't be trying to pronate through the wrist. All right, and I know some people talk about your pronation happens because of extension, and pronation actually occurs through your forearm, right? So like if my arm gets out to good extension, even if the elbow's a little bit bent, right? As I get to extension and I hit out, it's a linear stroke. So as I hit linear out to my target, naturally what's going to happen is my forearm will pronate and then my wrist will pronate. I see a host of injuries and I see a lot of problems, especially with young kids, and they're trying to roll their forehand over because they see footage of Fed hitting, and Fed's forehand is like this after contact, right? But that's because it's out at extension. If anyone wants to deep dive this today, we dropped a video how to have clean, consistent contact with the student, Aiden O'Connor, really, really good junior, terrific kid. And I talk all about how this extension and what we should be looking for at contact, and that will completely answer the questions you have through the wrist. But please, please, please don't try to like actively pronate at contact. That's a bad idea, and it's going to lead to big injuries.
For sure, for sure. We got one more plus question, and we're getting to the end. So, guys, it is 9:54. Any question that has been asked so far, we will finish up.
Man.
Yeah, well, I think we'll be able to wrap this in about maybe 7 minutes. But Any questions that have been asked, we will answer. We've got to cut this off at some point because we got to go to sleep and run Play Your Court tomorrow.
We got another plus, it looks like.
Yep. So Arif in plus, I'm going to ask you to unmute. If you're not able to, no worries, but I'll ask you if you accept. We'll talk to you.
We need the doctor on this one. He's talking about the.
There you go. Arif from Sydney. Can you hear us? It looks like you're unmuted.
Hey guys, how are you?
What's going on,
Good,
man?
how are you?
From Sydney, Australia, I assume, yes?
That's right. Zooming in the middle of my work day.
I love that. I love that. All right, so your question, the inside of your elbow hurts when you serve at times. What could be the reason? So you're saying, I'm assuming like right here, this side when you serve?
That's exactly right, yes.
Doctor?
I'm not the doctor. That was I believe Wilson that was on our call. Was it Wilson that was the doctor?
Oh,
might be messing
Wilson says overstretching. So Wilson is a doctor,
there we
and
go.
he says overstretching. Yeah, I mean, my honest thought is anytime you're like fully yanked and putting pressure, that can hurt. So like even as I do that right now, if I go out here and flex, it's going to hurt. So I could see like a late contact at full extension. Do you have issues with late contact over like back behind your head or like a toss that goes back behind your head at all, Arif?
All the time, yes.
My guess is that's the culprit,
Good
without
call.
without seeing it, that would be my best guess. But yeah, if you're making contact late, that can also give you shoulder pain too. But yeah, if you're making contact late at full extension, I mean, it hurts for me even at this point in my life to just hold my arm like this. So my guess is that's where some of the pain's coming from. Try and get that toss further out in front. Just think about contact, that leads you into the court, and hopefully that'll go away.
Gotcha. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man, of course.
Yeah, pleasure. Hope you heal up soon.
I hope you play tennis and ignore the workday some more. I love it.
That's right.
Cheers.
Cheers, buddy. All right.
Overstretching. That was a good call, Wilson. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
Wilson, if you're
and
looking
contact
for a
behind.
job at Play Your Court, you could be a doctor still, or you could come on YouTube and teach tennis. Let us know which you prefer. All right, we've got just a couple more that we're going to answer here from Facebook and YouTube. Richard Ortiz, Scott versus Nate in a 5-setter. Who wins?
Oh, wow. 5-setter. I don't have a problem saying right now it would be Scott. He's in a little bit better shape than I am. Somebody's been doing his Peloton every morning. And
we don't have an affiliate deal with Peloton. Nate just likes
to
to make fun of me.
Yeah, I just like to make fun of him. 5-setter would be rough for me. I also have like 8 years on you. But
That's true.
But you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. Ask us that in 3 months when we start actually playing.
But thanks for asking today also.
Yeah, but today I'll give Scotty the nod. He's a little younger, a little fitter right now.
And way better at tennis. I mean, let's not like
service still poo-poo, so that would probably break
that's
out.
That's not nice or true. My favorite screen name of all night, More Cowbell, asks,
yes.
Two-handed backhand for a righty. Does the left wrist stay extended through the hit? Does the left wrist stay extended through the hit? Yes. So he's saying two-handed backhand, right-handed player. Does the left wrist stay extended?
Oh, through contact.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the answer.
Yep.
Nate, any post-nerve surgery tips, warm-ups, exercises? Post-nerve surgery tips, warm-ups, exercises.
So this is post. I'm assuming in the
From
hitting
Samuel.
arm.
Yeah, are you comfortable telling your right arm story? You don't have to if you're not.
Yeah, I don't care. Doesn't matter.
I think this is good. And also, we've been at this for those of you that are still on here. This is a little bonus that I don't feel like Nate talks about a whole lot. So
yeah, I mean, there's no trauma involved, but I nearly lost my right arm. I'll show you all this amazing scar. So you can see,
Mr. Bowling got bit by a shark. He showed me the scar and everything.
So from here to about there, my arm is severed. And if you can see here, Dr. Wilson, you'll appreciate this as a neurologist. They took basically all my nerves, my ulnar radial nerve and all the tendons. They couldn't come back through this part of my arm. So this scar, they took my tendons and nerves and went back through the medial side. I think it's the medial side.
This is going to be beneficial because for those of you that are battling injuries, unless you cut your arm off, don't complain to Nate about it.
Yeah, so it was pretty rough. So severed nerves, several tendons. I mean, pretty much off. Bad accident. when mom and dad tell you don't horseplay, don't horseplay. New Year's Eve, my senior year of high school, I've had all kinds of different scholarships. I had committed to UNC Wilmington and second thoughts for JMU, where I didn't end up going, but ended up losing all that because of this arm injury. And for about a year and a half, I played left-handed. I finished my high school year playing left-handed. But the arm's a mess. Like, you can't cut those nerves and not have it. I still, to this day, I don't have any control of these 3 fingers. So like, I can't pull these 3 fingers together. But fortunately,
he's right-handed
pitchers,
also.
yeah.
Like, this is unbelievable. Every time you tell the story, I'm like, man, I suck at tennis. Like, the dude's competing with 2 fingers.
So here's the thing that's crazy with tennis, though, is that of all the sports that I've competed in, I can't play basketball anymore. I played basketball through high school. You don't need a lot of tension. So all the injury is devastating. It makes finding my grip rather difficult, and it makes defending volleys sometimes tough. You don't need a lot of tension. But nerve pain stretching in particular, man, if I could go back to when I was 17 is when the accident occurred. I know I did a lot of stuff that was very similar to kind of your tennis elbow stuff. A lot of this stuff.
The dynamic warm-up is big too. Like, I know when we have live students here, you always talk about, like, because he's asking like tips for warm-ups or exercises.
Because of nerve pain, though, right?
Yeah,
just not.
Post-nerve surgery tips.
I wonder if that's also like back. I can see a lot of neck and back stuff there.
Yeah.
Too. So if it's warm-up stuff, just remember, it's always dynamic. Start dynamic, right? So dynamic is all your stuff. Like, the most basic form of dynamic is jumping jacks, right? Yeah. But don't come out doing this stuff. So the idea is that when you lengthen and you contract a muscle, you put it to sleep. So all that stuff we learned as kids, where you come out and you do these and you do these and all you're doing is making your muscles go to sleep and not getting them ready for performance. You want to warm up, right? And that's why, like, jumping jacks and all that stuff, obviously they're much more dynamic, can be more dynamic, but do that. And then post exercise, going to static stretching. The only time static stretching is really, like, you want to do it is like if you have a severe injury, right? So, like, I've got an FI impingement in the hip. I've got to static stretch that. And even though it's not great for performance, if I don't, everything hurts way too much. So I wish I had I don't know. I'm sure our neurologist knows some stuff with some nerve stretch and all, but yeah, I don't have anything off the top of my head. Completely nerve related.
Cool. I still think that's pretty useful. The dynamic stuff, yeah. Again, we're not a doctor, unfortunately.
But I play one
on TV
once a month or Tuesday nights.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Peter asks for tips to help incorporate the legs into the serve. When I try, the rest falls apart. Do you want to field this?
I just say load. Just load your legs. Don't worry about jumping. That's through our serve course. We talked about it over and over again. Most people have an issue trying to incorporate the legs with their serve. As they actively jump, they lose control of what they're doing with the hands, hence the racket load. And it's as simple as just pushing weight through the ground. If you're jumping 2 inches, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't need to be any more than that to get big power in the serve.
I was just going to say, and activate the back leg, right? So, I mean,
there you go.
You don't have to get an enormous knee bend to get 99% of the benefit. Most of the benefit from using your legs on your serve comes from activating your back leg, which helps that racket drop get deeper, and it helps that lasso effect. So if the full knee bend's not working for you, just think about pushing off the ground from that back foot, and that should help sync up a lot of other things, and you'll get a lot of benefit from just that one tip alone. Tennis 979 says, should a lower level player who has watched tons of videos and read lots of instruction materials ever offer tips to a higher level player? No.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Belichick isn't the best football player of all time. I don't know. If you're a tennis coach, then for sure, that's a tough one.
It's always gonna
very
situational.
situational.
But yeah, I mean, if you know what you know, then great. But like, it always comes back to experience. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's kind of like Venus, where Venus popped off recently, where she was like, when she gets hard questions, she was like, Can you beat me in tennis?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit nasty. I'm not saying that's the right answer. I'm just saying that's how people are naturally going to respond.
I mean,
if they're
Darren
other
Cahill
players.
could never beat any of the players he coached in tennis, but he was.
That's not true. Darren Cahill was good.
He couldn't beat like Sampras or Fed or.
He would beat Simona Halep.
Okay.
Darren was on the tour.
All right,
Yeah,
fair
he
enough.
could play.
Fair enough. ABG stands for Authentic Brands Group. Let's see here. Is there a Wilson equivalent to the Babolat Aero Pro Drive Pure Aero? The blade's pretty close, I believe.
Actually, it would be the Ultra. The stiffness is the Ultra.
The Ultra?
Yeah.
Okay, so Varun the Ultra. There you have it. And guys, that is all the time we have here. I promise.
Check going overhead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but yeah, we've been on for 2 hours here. I really appreciate.
Lots of fun tonight.
Yeah, it was awesome, guys. I know we don't typically stay on and go through everybody on the interwebs, but we were feeling chipper. So thank you guys for sticking around for 2 full hours, especially you guys in the Plus group, Christopher Wilson,
Kathleen,
Arif,
we see all you guys. Thank you for being here. It means the world.
Beth, Jared. I don't know who iPhone is in Plus, but we appreciate you too.
We see you too, iPhone.
That's right. And Wilson, I sent you a direct message with my email if you want to chat more about that stuff. And guys, that's it. Thank you so much. We'll be doing this again. What do we do? We normally do the first Tuesday of every month, I believe.
That's correct.
And we're coming at you next month with some kick serve tips. So if you want to check that out, make sure you join the Player Court community if you're not in there already. And we will see you guys next time. Cheers, guys. Thanks so much.
Have a good night. See you guys.